Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is story about what if Naruto uncovers an ability called Metal Release and a Kekkei Tota part 1. Before I start, please do support for more amazing content and comments for part 2. Do consider to subscribe my channel and share my video to your friends and check out the description as well. Let's start the video. It was a dark and stormy autumn night on October 10th, 6 years to the day Konoha lost its guiding light, Yondaime Hokage, Namikaze Minato, Kiro no Senko, the Yellow Flash. He died, along with his wife and newborn child, the night Kitsune no Kyuubi attacked the village hidden in the leaves. The monster had not been seen since the time of the Shodai, and Uchiha Madara, and their legendary battle at Owari no Tani, the Valley of the End. So to have it suddenly appear and lay waste to Konohagakure, for no reason, was a polarizing event in the eyes of the good citizens of Hidden Leaf Village. Konoha has a unique reputation among Goei Dainokuni, the 5 great nations, because it considered all of the people living within its walls to be of vital importance. The civilians were as vital in the eyes of the Hokage as the shinobi and kunoichi that protect this village. In Konoha, there is a fierce camaraderie between all of its citizens. When one of their neighbors needs help, a Konohan will do everything short of breaking the law to aid that neighbor, whether it's something as mundane as cleaning up after a party, aiding the family of a fallen ninja, or even helping a business that's failing. Seriously, if there is a merchant in the leaf in danger of going bankrupt, that store suddenly becomes the most popular store in the village. And as long as that store sells quality merchandise at reasonable rates, their business is saved, and the owner will be given tips on how to make sure it does not happen again. This camaraderie is almost entirely universal, spanning all echelons of power, from the most powerful clans to the lowliest of orphans running around the village. There is but one exception to this unwritten law, known as Hai no Ishi, the will of fire, and while by no means universally embraced, there are enough adherents to this philosophy to make the life of the focus of said belief a lesson in abject torture. This exception just so happens to be the most hated individual in the Hidden Leaf, not for something he did, but for something that he had no control over, something that he himself does not know about. Thanks to a well-meaning, but terribly short-sighted law, passed by Sandaime Hokage, Sarutobi Hiruzen, Kyoju, the professor, and Shinobi Shin, the shinobi god, nobody is allowed to even mention the reason the boy is so completely loathed by much of the populace of Konoha. Hiruzen's reasoning being that it was his attempt to try to give Uzumaki Naruto, age 6, as much of a normal childhood as possible. What the third never reckoned was that just because they did not speak the actual reason for their hatred, did not prevent them from venting it upon the head of the unsuspecting child. Also, not telling him was in actuality more tormenting for the child than telling him. Reasonable hatred is understandable for even one as young as him. Unreasoning hatred, however, made him wonder if the things they called him, demon child, hell spawn, and the like, might actually be true. From over the crest of a hill came Naruto. He was breathing hard. He had been running since the storm began, since the good citizens of Konoha had banded together to give Naruto a very special gift just for his birthday, a lynching, which was not anything new, because since he was kicked out of the orphanage exactly 2 years ago, he has had to dodge such mobs at least once a month. Usually by now, the Hokage's A&B would have moved in to quell the riot. That would not be the case today, because the Hokage was away, attending the finals of the Chunin exams in Sunagakure, and thus, there would be no rescue for Naruto tonight. Naruto was a ginger-haired, violet-eyed little boy, dressed in cast-off clothing. He was running in bare feet, since the shoes he had been wearing earlier were too big for his feet, and had fallen off toward the beginning of this chase. Naruto continued to run, as fast as his little legs could carry him. The last month, he had begun to take classes at the Academy of Ninja, here in the village. It had been his belief that if he tried to become a ninja, he could at least protect himself. What he never reckoned on, the civilians who sent their children to there would never accept the demon's presence so near their children. So, they plotted a course that would make sure their vengeance would be carried out, and it looked as if their plan was smiled upon by Kami-sama, when an entire team of genin, and another kunoichi, was able to make it to the finals of Suna's Chunin exam. The ANBU, who normally protected that thing, would be tasked with going to the foreign country, to protect their Hokage from any possible attempts on his life. The Uchiha police force would be no problem either, because they held as much disdain for it as the rest of the people of Konoha, and had a habit of looking the other way when the demon was getting what it deserved. The Uchiha obviously did not want the young son of their head family exposed to the corruption of the demon, any more than the rest of the people of the Leaf. Uchiha Sasuke was in its class after all. The mob had chased the thing out of the urbanized section of the village, towards the training grounds. In fact, they seemed to be closing in on training ground 44. So it came to pass that looming up out of the darkness and the storm was the wall that separated the Forest of Death from the rest of the Hidden Leaf. Naruto came to an abrupt stop, looking around and seeing no way out, turned back to face the throng. He had a fierce look of determination on his face. He may have only been 6, but he had promised himself that if his end ever came like this, he would face it without sniveling and pleading for mercy like a coward. More to the point, just looking in their eyes, Naruto knew that such actions would be futile, because mercy was not in them. Finally, you'll get what you deserve, demon spawn, one of the civilians bellowed. You will pay for all the people you murdered. Naruto remained quiet, understanding that any rebuttal from him would only fall upon deaf ears. These people were out for blood, and nothing he said would deter them from getting it. But he would fight as fiercely as he could. He may not win, but they would remember him. With every bruise and scratch that healed they would know that Uzumaki Naruto did that to them, not the demon they claimed him to be. The weapons they carried were many and varied, from pickaxes and hoes, to kunai and swords. Their metal weapons glinted with the flash of lightning in the sky. Naruto had no weapons of his own, having only been at the academy for a month, and though determined not to show it, he was scared. He could feel his blood racing through his veins, gushing through his arteries. Naruto's breathing was rapid, coming out in gasps, as he tried to catch his breath from the chase. Then another person spoke, this one with a vindictive leer on her face, which would have been pretty were it not marred with a mask of hatred. From your demon mask, you seem to have forgotten what it was you did to us, so allow me to enlighten you as to the reason why we are going to destroy you. You see, 6 years ago, the nine-tailed demon fox attacked our village without provocation. Most of us lost someone very precious to us, mothers, fathers, children, siblings, lovers. That same night, the Yondaime Hokage fought valiantly to defend our village. He did everything he could to kill the fox, but as powerful as the fourth was, he was still a man, and tailed beasts cannot be killed, they will just regenerate, no matter what you do to them. The only way to defeat Kabiju is to seal them within an object, and unfortunately, the nine-tailed beast is too powerful to be sealed within anything inanimate. It must be sealed into a person. Another unfortunate circumstance we know is the sealing had to be within an infant child, because their chakra coils had not yet fully formed. You were the only child born that day. She trailed off as she watched Naruto's eyes become as big as saucers, as even he could draw the obvious conclusion to the picture this woman painted for him. Am I the Nine-Tails? He asked himself. As he became distracted, the woman took the opportunity to strike. And now, Demon Fox, you will pay for your crimes against us, she shrieked, while casting her kunai directly at Naruto. And because you are sealed within the body of that poor unfortunate child, your soul will be sent back to hell where it belongs. On instinct, Naruto drew upon his chakra and channeled it into the ground, which began to rumble ominously. Then several pillars of shiny metal came shooting up out of the ground. The pillars formed into a wall surrounding him. Get away from me, Naruto shouted, as he heard the plinking of metal striking metal. But before the mob could react, more metal pillars thrust themselves up through the earth. The entire mob was too slow to react. Even the ninja amongst the group were too caught by surprise to jump out of the way. They were impaled on Naruto's forest of spiky pillars. In all, about 30 people lost their lives to Naruto's sudden counterattack. Naruto just looked on in horror at what he had done. Then with a cry of despair, he turned and ran away from the slaughter yard he left behind. There are rumors that say Senju Hashirama created the Hidden Leaf Forest from a single acorn, and that he could use the trees that grew from that seed to spy on anybody traveling within the forest. It has even been believed that he could travel to anywhere in the forest, faster than his brother could Hiraishin. He knew everything that happened to any of the trees in his forest, and if he needed nourishment, he could simply eat the wood of any tree, whether it came from his forest or not. That's how in tune the first Hokage was with his bloodline, and of course, he could manipulate any form of wood, whether he sprouted it or not. As Naruto ran, he did not know that. All he knew is that he had to get away from this place and hide. Naruto ran through the forest, running in a blind panic. Since doing what he did, he has been sensing things. They were not big, quite small really, most seemed to be at rest, with only a few moving around significantly. He did not know what they were, and in his distressed frame of mind he did not care. He did not care, until a significantly large version of what he was sensing loomed large in his path, and that was when he came face to face with the bear. Naruto could feel it, as if he could feel himself. He seemed to be able to feel the ebb and flow of the bear's blood through its blood vessels, and he sensed the articulation of the bear's bones. Naruto seemed to be able to sense the bear's physical condition, like he would his own body. Naruto, even in his panic, was an analytical person, so the evidence led him to a conclusion. It was getting close to winter, the bear was tired and hungry, it has not been having much luck in hunting, and then Naruto comes blundering into his territory, so he lost his temper and wanted to kill Naruto. Naruto felt sorry for the bear, but he wanted to live more, and he did not have the energy to run anymore, now that his panic had abated. So, as the bear lunged, Naruto put up his hand, and sent his chakra into the bear, which halted as it began to choke and spasm. Its eyes became wide as it tried to retreat from whatever was happening to it. Too late, as Naruto's chakra manipulated the iron in the blood of the poor animal, the bear's heart began to pump faster and faster. As Naruto expelled the gases the bear's blood carried, allowing it to respire. Naruto watched regretfully as the bear died, because he caused the bear's body to betray it. Naruto approached the downed beast, as he felt the bear's pulse stop. I'm sorry, Naruto said to the carcass, but I just can't die yet, I had to live. I'm sorry you had to become my latest victim. It just was not Naruto's way to leave perfectly good food lying around, without using as much of it as he could, and the bear deserved to have his death mean something. Naruto did not have any tools, so he decided to see what his power and ingenuity would allow him to do, so he cast his senses around, but they came to the corpse again. Naruto realized he could still feel the bear's presence, as whatever he sensed before was still there. he tried to move whatever he sensed, which caused the spike of black iron to shoot up through the bear's skin and fur, before falling back and crumbling into iron flakes. That's interesting, that obviously came from the blood, but I'm sensing other things near there. It seems to go all over the body. Naruto tried to move what he was sensing. It was a little tougher to move than the blood, which means it took longer. But in less than a minute, a white piece of bone also poked itself through the skin of the dead bear. Wow, I thought I could only manipulate metal, not bone, he mused. You weren't doing anything to the bone, Kit, came a voice from inside his head. It's the calcium in the bones you were affecting. Calcium is a metal, therefore, you can only affect metals. To say Naruto was more than a little weirded out about having a voice speaking inside his head was like saying the ocean is wet. It was obvious, and not even worth mentioning. Before he could ponder anything, Naruto was pulled into his mind. He was standing within a dank sewer. With the water reaching up to his ankles, he looked around. There seemed to be only 3 directions he could go at the moment. One direction led into darkness, while the other led into a brighter area, and one seemed to lead somewhere with a silvery light shining down the corridor. Needless to say, he went towards the brightest light. Naruto came into a chamber wider than most. This seemed to be the origin of the flow of water, and intermixed with this blue fluid, a small amount of orange water flowed steadily from the center. It was lost almost immediately into the mixture of the blue, that it might as well have not existed. But even Naruto, at age 6, knew that even a single drop in the ocean still added to the ocean's abundance. Naruto followed the orange water back to its origin, only to find a massive cage, and within that cage, crouched low and staring at the boy, was an immense animal. The animal seemed to be a cross between a rabbit, because of its long ears, and a fox, from the rest of its body. The intelligent eyes of this massive creature held neither hatred nor love for the boy. It merely studied Naruto, withholding judgment until further notice. At this point, despite being 6 years old, Naruto had to grow up fast, whereas other kids, even other orphans, had the luxury of being children. Because of the hatred of nearly every person that lived in Konoha, he never had that. His very well-being depended upon knowing whom he could trust, and who to watch out for. His very life since he was 4 depended on that. Mistakes earned him pain, good calls got him some food, and a warm place to sleep. So he had to weigh each choice he made carefully and avoid making snap decisions. He also had to be able to think logically, and leave his emotions out of his decision-making process, otherwise he would not have reached the age he was now, the ripe old age of 6. You must be the Kyuubi, Naruto surmised, and the fox, remaining silent, nodded. Do you have a name? The fox nodded again. You know me, since you've been sealed inside me from birth, Naruto began. Sorry about that, it's been a bumpy ride, what with people assuming I'm you. You're not going to tell me your name, are you? Naruto asked with a sigh, to which the fox shook her head. Why did you tell me the calcium thing then? He asked. For the first time since their meeting, the demon fox grinned. I didn't, the Kyuubi informed Naruto. That was my aim, or dark half, the half that governs my mind. I am Kyuubi, or the light half. I govern the body of the being you know as Kyuubi no Kitsune. I learn everything he learns, and have his intelligence. He gets my power and desires, though separated, we are still one being. Well, thanks for the information, Naruto stated, then remembered something. Ian is down the dark hallway, isn't he? And the fox just nodded again, and Naruto turned to leave, before looking around at his surroundings. This can't be a very pleasant place to live for a fox, Naruto concluded. I apologize for being such a lousy host. Let me try to change a few things around here. Naruto closed his eyes, and thought of a pleasant forest glade, with trees scaled to the size of the fox, with the sun just reaching its zenith, along with birdsong filtering through the atmosphere. Naruto opened his eyes expecting to see his imagination had taken hold of his surroundings. He blinked his eyes rapidly, because he was still in the sewer he had been in when he first arrived. For the first time since entering his mind, Kyuubi showed an emotion, other than the mask of neutrality she had worn from the beginning, that of unrestrained mirth. Ah. There was not much room for movement in the cage, but Naruto, even as he sulked, arms crossed with wounded pride, got the impression that if Yan could have, Yan would have been rolling over as she laughed her ass off. Finally getting control of her laughter, Yan began explaining what the problem was. If you think it's that easy to shape your mindscape, you've got another thing coming. These walls here are your mind's way of describing your personality, which is shaped by multiple factors, most prominently life experiences, and as we both know, you haven't had very many good experiences. The mindscape is actually in what psychologists would describe as the subconscious mind. Jinchuriki are among the few beings in existence that can access that part of the mind. This chamber represents your ego, or self. Kyuubi, because of the nature of In, resides deep within the well-known as the ID, or inner desires, which I wouldn't recommend going to, unless you're ready to relive every evil thing ever done to you, which given how your life has gone so far, will be quite a lot. Naruto thought about it, and concluded that Yan was right. Maybe someday he would try to go into that part of his mind, but he knew he was not ready yet. But I can't stand to see anybody caged like that. I refuse to treat you like a prisoner. I took it that you would only share your name with me once you trusted me. Naruto did not need the nod from the fox to reach his conclusion, and the best way to build trust that I know of is to do something nice and meaningful for the one whose trust you wish to earn. You have done a lot over the years to help me. The fox's eyes were wide with surprise that the kid figured that much out, which Naruto noticed. I noticed that my injuries, whenever I would get beat, seemed to heal faster than normal, and I've more endurance than many chunin in the village. That, since you're the yon half of Kyubi, must mean you've been helping me stay alive, when by rights, I should have been killed many times over. My observational skills, analytical mind, and even my mode of speech, are vastly different than any other 6-year-old I've met. They're skills most adults don't have, or I wouldn't be looking for a new home right now, Naruto informed his tenant. I believe I have Ian to thank for that, am I right? Yan regarded the boy standing in front of her, searching for any form of duplicity, and upon finding none, she answered, you are correct. Kid then added, but I didn't do it for you, I did it so we wouldn't die, because if you die, I die. When the Yandame and his wife formed this seal, she informed him, while pointing to the seal engraved on a metallic plate, they called upon the power of all three pillars of existence, Kami, Yami, and Shinigami. They bound my soul to yours, Naruto, for all eternity. So you see, I didn't do anything for you. I was doing it for myself, so I may hang on to life as long as possible. That doesn't change anything in my eyes, Naruto said, while shaking his head. It only reinforces my stance, that I need to do something to help pull my weight. Anything however small could mean the difference between living and dying. Yan continued to stare at this boy, who seemed to grasp the realities of their situation, but she had to ask, why are you doing this? I get wanting to do your part to help us live, but we could go on as we were before. The Yang me, healing and strengthening you, while the Yin me makes you more aware of your surroundings, and allowing you to think clearly, and will continue to live just fine. Yang finished and waited for his answer. Naruto just pointed at the area below Yang. Because you're giving me so much more, he stated. That's your chakra, isn't it? She looked down to where he was pointing, then back and just nodded. You're giving me your essence, your chakra, and I'll wager Yin is doing the same thing, giving me his chakra, and what's worse is it's being taken against your will. For this to be an equal bond, I have to give something to it as well. Now stop with this interrogation and tell me what I can do to be an equal partner in our continued survival. Yan Kyubi smiled brightly, with all her pointed teeth, and replied, come closer, Naruto. Naruto came to, exactly 1 second in the real world, after he had been pulled into his mind. Whoa, these new senses are going to take some getting used to, he exclaimed. Not to worry, I'll lend you my experience with them, Kyubi reassured him. But remember to think to me, rather than speaking out loud, or people will think you're crazy. Right, got you, Naruto thought, so I'm linked to Yan Kyubi's senses, which are the senses of a fox, and the mind of Yin Kyubi, which essentially returns you to being one complete being. In spite of the separation between the two halves, I'm the conduit through which you experience the world around us, outside of my mind. That about sum it up, Kyubi? Exactly, Naruto, Kyubi confirmed. While I refuse to nursemaid you through life, you can think of me as a guide, an extra conscience, if you will. You don't have to listen to a word I say, you must still follow your own judgment, Kyubi told him, and you may use my chakra anytime you want to carry out your will. You must still learn how to use it, but I'll help you with that. Your own chakra and metal release, I leave to you to train in learning how to use. Kyubi concluded the recitation of the terms of their deal, then asked, we still have a deal? We have an accord, he stated. In his mind, Naruto nodded as he set to butchering the bear for meat and clothing, according to the Biju's instructions. It had been a week since Naruto had escaped the torturous life provided by Konoha. In that week not much had changed, except now, he wore clothes that actually fit, and had plenty to eat, thanks to the jerk meat provided by the bear. Naruto had been aimlessly wandering through fire, mostly along the main roads leading from one urban center to another. He worked odd jobs for a pittance just so he could purchase certain essentials, mostly cleaning places that larger workers could not fit. Naruto's metal sense was a kami-sent miracle, as far as he was concerned, because metal seemed to be part of the chemical makeup of nearly every object in the world. Iron, copper, zinc, even the salt in one's sweat contained sodium, and sodium is a metal just like iron, titanium, gold, etc., which Naruto could sense, and most people, unless they had no conscience, sweated a little, especially when they lied, or were being otherwise dishonest. He still relied as much on his ability to read people, but the metal sense added an extra level of assurance in tense situations. Even water contained at least trace amounts of certain metals, even the condensation of rain had some metal in it. His metalmancy, as Kyubi called his ability to control metal from a distance, was an excellent form of defense, though luckily, he has not had to use deadly force since that first night. Any confrontation that came his way, mostly by bullies and bandits, sometimes even a pervert or two, he would use the metals in their bodies to cause them a sort of paralysis, basically becoming a sort of demonic puppeteer. The first two, he merely kept in stasis until he was out of the area, and lifted their money and weapons, which at Naruto's range was about a 50-yard radius, before the effects wore off. The hentai, however, he left a more lasting result. He would force as much blood into their respective genitals as he could, until they lost consciousness, and then, he robbed them too. Oh, the temptations Naruto resisted, to use his metalmancy to become a thief. Most money is metal, and it would have been child's play to steal the change out of some unsuspecting person's wallet. He resisted for two reasons. 1. even in his most dire circumstances while in Konoha, he never even thought of resorting to thievery. And why? Now that his fortunes were looking up, should he be reduced to it now? He would sooner go back to the leaf, before he became a thief, and 2, his foxy conscience would never allow it. Its container should have better use of his time than to become a common thief. The odd jobs Naruto took were more than enough to buy what he should need, and if he ran out of food, he could always go hunting. Kyubi said taking money and weapons from those who would harm us was different than being the instigator of it. It was done purely out of self-preservation. Naruto never stayed in one place for long. He did not want Konoha to find him and drag him back to that place. It was not like he did not want to see his Jiji again, or the Ichirakus. He did. They were one of the few people in the village to care about him. Even most of the ANBU only looked out for him because it was their duty to do so. It was just a handful of them who seemed to genuinely care about him, but he could and should never rely on something like that. If the village did not respect the Hokage enough to honor his wishes, even while he was gone for the week, then the village was already doomed. It would never be a safe place for him. It was exactly 7 days after leaving Konoha that he happened upon something that would change his life for the better, or at least give him stability. A temple monk was being menaced by a gang of 3 cutthroats, 2 guys and a girl. He was being held at knife point. As Naruto watched, he admired the man's strength. He did not seem scared, and was just calmly and patiently standing there looking at these people, with compassion. The monk is a man of above average height and messy black hair. He wore a simple dogi and hakama. Under his Temple of Fire robes, he had a relatively small physique, a small and well-groomed mustache, and white, colorless eyes. He looked almost like those stuck-up Hyuga. The 3 thugs holding him against his will were a pretty diverse group of teenagers. They were martial artists, as evidenced by the conditions of their bodies. The leader seemed to take himself way too seriously, a fair-skinned boy, and tall, with a well-muscled build, and wore round, frameless glasses, and a white suit with a light yellow cravat. He had purple hair, grown into a mass of strands. The second boy, doing his best to look cool and menacing by chewing bubble gum, was a tall, muscular young man, fair-skinned, with dark blonde, spiked-up hair, and blue eyes. He was wearing a white sleeveless shirt, blue jeans, white sneakers, and red jacket with its sleeves ripped off. The only female in the gang also seemed to be the only one carrying a weapon. It looked like a short staff, wood, probably the only weapon I couldn't stop with my metalmancy, Naruto assumed. She was a fairly tall and rather attractive, dark-skinned woman, with dark eyes, long, curly, black hair, with curvy eyebrows, and a thin scar running across her left cheek. She is slender but noticeably curvaceous, athletic in frame with broad shoulders and flared hips, a well-endowed chest, with a fairly muscled and well-toned build. She wore a form-fitting, light blue, sleeveless blouse, dark blue spandex pants, with a pale, leather jacket, hiding the pieces of her staff in the jacket sleeves, and a golden-eyed pendant around her neck. They were all wearing black gloves on their hands, with golden metal kanji characters on each hand: Kami, Yami, Shinigami, respectively. I will tell you one more time, old man, the nominative leader threatened. His voice was even and confident. Give me your money, and we'll let you go. We're not a death squad, but we do administer punishment accordingly. Attachment to the material is a trap, young man, was all the monk said to him. The one probably called Kami, in his group, grabbed the monk by the lapels of his yukata. Fine, I tried to do this nice and peacefully, but you've tempted the hand of God, and now you must pay. Soon, all the world will bow before God, even those insignificant ninja will fall before our might, the might of Mahashara, the 3 pillars. The asshole reared back and let his fist fly. Well, he would have, if his fist had not just been stopped by nothing. His hand had just stopped moving, however the force behind the punch kept going, before rebounding back through the arm of this so-called Kami, and with nowhere else to go, it unleashed its energy on the only solid matter it could find, the bones of its origin. Force that may have been used to kill the man, rebounded into the joints, dislocating the ball and socket joint of the shoulder, fracturing the radius and the ulna in the elbow, and broke the wrist. The sudden stop had been the equivalent of hitting a stone wall with full force, not a good idea unless you could use chakra to reinforce your arm. Kami howled in pain and held his now useless arm to his chest. Naruto had used the gold in his gloved fist, the iron of his blood, and the calcium in Kami's bones to stop his fist. The damage had been exacerbated, because the arm had not been prepared for the sudden jolt that halted it. "Haha," came an unexpected voice. "You call yourself God, and think a little force will help you against ninja." And the voice, as it turned out, was coming from a little boy. Even the monk was wearing a surprised look on his face, before schooling his features into passivity. "Can you even use chakra?" Naruto asked. "I was at the academy for a single month, enough to help me unlock my chakra, then learn the basics of what to do with it. If I can do this much to you, with just a small expenditure, what do you think Jonin Ninja could do to you?" The little kid that continued to berate them walked out of the forest, and pointed his hand at the ground below them, and just like the first time he used his power, metal came shooting up out of the earth. Unlike that first instinctive use of his ability, after some practice with it over the week, he had more options than to kill with it, instead of impaling them from below, and since they were caught by surprise he was able to wrap the metal tentacles around all 3 of them before they even knew what was happening. Naruto reached the woman and stopped. "I beg your pardon, ma'am," he said, ducking his head, then reached into her jacket, around her body, and grabbed hold of her staff. He stepped back with a huge blush on his face. He was holding the staff she wielded, and he seemed more embarrassed than she was. She just looked confused. "1,000 apologies for getting familiar with you without your permission, sister," he beseeched her, "but I was removing temptation from you." "Believe it." Naruto tossed the weapon away from them, and turned to the monk, smiling and asking, "You okay, monk-san?" "I am well, young one," the monk answered. "My name is Koetsuji Susumu, former disciple of the Temple of Fire, Hano no Shinden in Kane." "Good to meet you, my name is Uzumaki Naruto. I used to live in Konoha," he began with a smile, before becoming quiet and guarded, "but I left. So, now I'm a wanderer, looking for my place in the world." "Someone so young, surely your parents are looking for you?" Susumu inquired. Naruto shook his head slowly, sadly. "Never had parents, they were killed the day I was born," he informed the monk. "Been on my own for a couple of years. My situation became untenable in the leaf, so I decided to see what the weather was like out here," he said vaguely, looking guardedly at the 3 listening ears next to them. Susumu's face showed he understood. "Well then, I am returning home from some business. Maybe you would like to travel with me to my home?" he asked. "Where are you heading, monk-san?" "A new temple," Naruto asked. Susumu fingered his chin. In a manner of speaking, yes, it could be called a temple. Confused, Naruto asked, "What do you mean by that?" The monk answered that question with another question. "Tell me, Naruto," he began, "have you ever wanted to be a ninja?" Then turning to the 3 teenagers, and asked them the same, "Have any of you?" Naruto was surprised, none more so than at least 2 of the 3 teenagers wrapped in metal tentacles that had just tried to rob this man. The one called Kami just scoffed. "My minions would never stoop so low as to join the lowly ranks of a village, they decline." The violet-haired lunatic's rant was cut off, as a tendril of metal branched itself off from the main tentacle and forced itself over his mouth. They all looked over at Naruto, who was looking at the teenager with a finger over his lips, and said, "Hush, I believe being mortals, gifted with free will by the true Kami, gives them the right to choose for themselves." "Now," he said, turning to the monk. Naruto indicated for Susumu to go on. "You were telling us about being ninja, and I have to say for myself, that I didn't leave Konoha, only to join another village, and become their enemy, you know." "Is that what you're proposing, monk-san?" Naruto asked with suspicious eyes. Susumu was shaking his head. "No, what I'm proposing is for you to join a school that'll allow you to be licensed as a ninja, with all the privileges and rights of being a ninja. But you'll be a ronin, owing allegiance to nobody unless you choose to do so. You can take missions as you see fit. In terms of a business, you'd be equivalent to an independent contractor, as opposed to just a nameless face your kage can assign to a mission, because your skill set might happen to coincide with the mission they need to fulfill. The drawback is, you may not have the resources that Satonin, village ninja, have to call upon, and you have to make your own reputation, because you won't be able to call upon the reputation of your village to bring you missions or to deter crimes against you from other ninja." "How much would it be to join your school?" the girl known as Shinigami asked. "Money must come from somewhere. Villages are subsidized by an economy, which is augmented with ninja missions. Therefore, where does the money come from?" she asked. Susumu grinned broadly. "There is a tuition, and the faux Shinigami," and Naruto wilted. "However, much of that will be worked off with chores, because in addition to ninja training, you will have to learn a trade, a skill, that can supplement your ninja work," pointing at Naruto. "Your power over metal could lend itself to any number of trades that are only obliquely related to shinobi work." Naruto was listening carefully, and remembered what the monk said. "You said, much of the tuition will be worked off with chores, and learning a trade," Naruto reminded Susumu. "How much will be worked off that way, and what else will the students have to do to meet tuition requirements?" Susumu was quiet as he looked at the others. "When you have completed your training, regardless of how much you owe, you will be required to apprentice for 1 year out of the school. You will be required to take any missions the school assigns to you. That is the only obligation our school will ever impose upon you. After that year, whether the tuition is paid in full or not, you will be free and clear. You may leave with everything you have and not return unless you wish it," the monk finished. Naruto was thinking over everything Susumu said to him, but before he gave his answer, he looked hard at the monk. "I was enrolled for a month in the Ninja Academy at Konoha. It was mostly talking about the legalities of ninja work. One of the laws governing our trade is that we are given immunity for the things we may be called to do, and that immunity comes from the village or clan by way of the daimyo, which is ratified by General Mifune, and the imperial court in Tetsu no Kuni. Only someone with that license, which has the seal of a daimyo, the general's seal, and the seal of the emperor, may teach someone to be a ninja." Naruto qualified himself, and the monk's grin grew big. "May I see your license, monk-san?" Susumu wordlessly summoned his qualifying credentials, and showed it to Naruto, who perused it, looking for everything that is drilled into every member of the class of citizen, who are allowed to kill anybody, and not ever have to worry about being arrested for it. Only their employers, those who hired them to perform the act of murder, would be held responsible if any legal actions were required. The ninja could not even be subpoenaed to appear as a witness for the prosecutor. In the eyes of the law, ninja were considered to be weapons, who just happened to be a human being, and one cannot hold the knife responsible for the actions of the arm that wielded it. They were even immune to the civil laws that covered such things as property damage, even if their actions leveled the city. Ninja were the only citizens of the Empire of the Sun who could legally wage war on each other. Anybody else, even the daimyos, would be tried for insurrection and executed. It would be the only time a kage could legally overrule their daimyo. When Naruto found 3 of the seals he was looking for on Susumu's license, the only seal missing was the seal for the village or clan. He knew that the claims of Monk-san were all true. In its place was the seal for the Minister of Commerce in Hai no Kuni, which was only needed when one started a commercial business. Naruto looked at the other 3 people present, with wide eyes. It's legitimate. The 3 seals I mentioned before are there. The only difference between it and the other examples drilled into me for the last month is the absence of a local seal, replaced by the business seal of fire, Naruto stated in awe as he went deep into his mind to speak to his tenant, to see if this was what he should do. What took hours of debate and decision-making in his mind only took 30 seconds outside of it, but when he returned to the world he had his answer, and just nodded to the monk. Naruto would become a Ronin shinobi, and of the 3 thugs, only the Fo-Shinigami opted to accept Susumu's offer. The boys refused, then were turned over to the nearest magistrate, and forgotten by the 3, as they made their way to the Ryozanpaku Ronin Academy of Ninja Arts. The journey to Naruto's new home from the site of the attack took a couple of days. In that time the travel companions got to know each other a little. The young lady's real name turned out to be Kugatachi Kaname, 16. She was the daughter of a weapons master, who taught her quite a bit about weapons handling. Her weapon of choice was the bowstaff, she called them, the most versatile of weapons, which gave one a choice, to kill or not to kill. Her own weapon was ingeniously crafted. It was 1.5 yards long, coming to her mid-upper arm, but if she gave it a quick twist, it came apart, and she had 2 weapons. She had crafted it herself, just before she left home to find herself. Her stated goal was to become the greatest weapons master of all time, greater than even her father. Kaname admitted she made a huge mistake when she fell in with the pillars. Ryuto Asamiya, the one calling himself Kami, was full-on crazy, actually believing himself to be Kami-sama, and Yami, whose real name was Shogo Kitsukawa, just liked to cause trouble. She admitted she only joined with them because she had a crush on Shogo, not her best decision, she now understood. Naruto, being 6, despite his evident maturity, did not understand. You liked him, he asked to her nod, but you knew what they were doing was wrong, right? They would be at their new village by noon tomorrow and were sharing a campsite. They even had a small fire going, and their camaraderie was a consequence of proximity. And as for Naruto, the fact he has not really talked to anybody for a week. Yes, Kaname answered, I knew they were up to no good. Naruto's expression of confusion caused Koetsuji to laugh. It seems, our young vagrant is still too young to know how powerful the force of attraction can be. Then sobering to look at Naruto, for which I am quite glad. It means your innocence is still rather tightly entrenched. Naruto sulked, with his arms crossed. I'm not as innocent as you think. Then remembering what happened about a week ago, quietly added, killers can't be innocent. The other 2 were quiet. Then Kaname, sharing a look with Susumu, got up and walked a little away from the campsite. It was not enough to take her into the darkness, but it gave them the illusion of privacy. The man looked over at the boy solemnly. Do you want to talk about it, Naruto? No, I don't, Naruto answered, shaking his head, and the man nodded, but I think I need to tell somebody, anybody, what I did in Konoha, that made me have to run. So, the little boy confessed, of the 30 murders he committed last week, on the night of his birthday, when he also discovered his power over metals. He told Susumu, although Naruto knew Kaname was there, about the bear he killed that same night by causing the poor creature's body to betray it. Naruto smoothed down the bear hide clothing he was wearing. This is from the skin of that poor animal. I have other garments from him. The bear was so huge, and I'm so small, he provided me with enough material to make 2 full changes of clothes. Naruto blushed and cast an uncomfortable glance toward the direction of the girl, even underwear. Susumu smiled at his humor, then grew serious. Naruto, it is not my place to pass judgment over what happened in your village, he informed the boy, though it sounds to me like you were protecting yourself. The situation with the bear was the same. The creature would have killed you, if you hadn't acted. Everybody has the right to do everything they feel right doing, to protect their lives, and the lives you cherish, Koetsuji told him. The fact that you feel guilty for that shows, despite how harsh your life has been, you still value the lives of those around you. You haven't let your life so far make you jaded, he declared. You're a good boy, and I look forward to seeing you grow into a great shinobi. Really? The little boy asked. Nobody had ever called him good, not even his Gigi. Do you mean that? He asked timidly. Of course I mean it, kid, Susumu confirmed broadly. If you hadn't left your village when you did, you wouldn't have been there to save me from the pillars. Naruto gave him a rueful grin. I don't think you were in any real danger, Monk-san, he declared to Susumu, whose eyes widened. No offense to Kaname-chan, over there. Naruto thumb-pointed, or her skills with her weapon. The calm you portrayed wasn't resignation to a beatdown. It was acceptance to a fight you didn't want. You wouldn't be a teacher at a ninja school if you couldn't hold your own. Naruto looked over at the astonished face of Kaname, especially against the likes of the pillars. Naruto waved her back over to sit by the warmth of the fire. Susumu's mouth made a slight upturn, And how could you be sure of that? Naruto pointed to his nose, ears, and whisker marks. There's more to me than my metal release ability. I have advanced senses. My metal sense allows me to sense any metal around me, down to the part per million. And I have the advanced senses of a fox, Naruto explained, which is part of another problem, one that I may tell you about, once I fully trust you. The fox senses include hearing a pin drop in another room, an excellent night vision, and these whisker-like birthmarks on my cheeks are in fact very sensitive touch organs. They, along with my sensitive ears, allow me to sense the difference in air pressure and locate unseen obstacles, when even my night vision is hampered. These senses, coupled along with an acute sense of smell, make me as at home at night, in the dark, or otherwise low visibility, as I am in broad daylight. I have always had an excellent sense of direction, and who knows, these fox senses might even boost my sensitivity to metals. Now, back to how I knew about your resolve to fight. I could hear each of your heartbeats, Naruto explained, as he swiveled his head between the two other people sharing the fire. Ryuto's heartbeat was rather calm, until he went into his rant. That Shogo guy's was excited in a slightly unhealthy way, Naruto said quickly, avoiding the eyes of the would-be kunoichi, and Kanemi-chan's while a little accelerated. Wasn't too bad, looking at the young woman with praise in his eyes. He was hoping she would not notice him moving past that part. Quickly she did, but decided an explanation on that could wait, at least until Naruto finished explaining things. Monk-san's heartbeat, Naruto continued, was as calm as a glacier, but that was just the tip-off, because despite your heart's relaxed attitude, like theirs, your body was still going through panic mode. I've been through it enough in my life and recognize the symptoms in my own body, and others when it happens. I could smell it, happening to all of you, the ginger boy explained to his older campsite compatriots. The air currents that day were good to me, and allowed me to distinguish individual scents, one of the things I wasn't prepared for when I got my nose. I noticed, Susumu-san, Kanem said, with a mysterious smile. You are not denying Naruto-kun's accusation. You really were going to fight us, weren't you? The ninja monk gave a non-committal smile. The fire temple is also a ninja temple, was all he would say. Come, let's get some sleep. You two have a busy day tomorrow. The next day at noon, the village of Two Rivers was not much different than any of the other 100 or so villages and urban centers that Naruto had passed through since running away from the Leaf. There were homes, shops, businesses, and municipal buildings, crowding around a town square and Central Park area. This one got its namesake because it was situated at the junction branching off point of Two Rivers. Naruto could see that the main source of income for the town was the wharf-front. He could see river craft loaded with cargo, getting underway for or returning from trips up and down both forks of the river. Monk-sen called one side the Tanzaku Fork, because it ended near the infamous Sin City of Hinokuni, Tanzakagai, the mecca of all gambling and debauchery in this country. Naruto, Kanem, and Susumu walked down the paved main street of the village, and as they did, Naruto noticed several artisans' businesses along their path, as well as a few pubs and eateries, enough to satisfy anybody's boredom. Naruto noticed a lot of the artisans' shops dedicated to metalworking. He could hear and feel the work being done inside each and every one of them, and he felt almost at home here. Susumu led the 6 and 16-year-olds around a bend and into the side street, where the eaves of the houses extended well over the roadway. The sunlight, even at midday, barely reached into the street. Then suddenly Susumu stopped, as he looked around and seemed to spot what he needed. Susumu took a sharp left, walked straight at a wall, and with a flash of light, he disappeared. Kanem was startled, but Naruto had lived in a hidden village all his life and knew a genjutsu when he saw one. He took Kanem by the hand, which startled her even more, but she looked at his confident face. She trusted him, not to lead them into disaster. Naruto walked toward the exact spot Koetsuji disappeared from, and a flash of light later, found themselves looking at a 5-meter-tall, by 90-meter-long stone wall, which was broken up in the middle, by a 6-meter-tall, by 3-meter-wide gate. This section housed a huge, wooden gate. It was plain and nondescript, without any form of ornamentation. The wall itself was unadorned. It was whitewashed from top to bottom, with wood paneling, half the height of the wall. The wall and the gate section were topped with a pointed eave-style roof. Susumu was standing at the entrance, with his hands folded, looking very mysterious and priestly. Welcome, he said to them, to Ryozanpaku, Ronin Academy of Ninja Arts. If you wish admittance, please step forward and gain entrance. He told them cryptically. Kanem moved forward and pushed on the door. It would not budge, not even when she put her whole body into moving it. Then she looked at the boy, who seemed wise beyond his years. Why won't it open, she asked. Naruto thought for a moment, then stepped forward and knocked upon the door, and Kanemi-chan blushed deeply. Of course, it's not just a school, it's somebody's home, she rebuked herself. They heard footsteps falling on flagstones on the other side of the door. The footsteps stopped, and the would-be ninja apprentices heard a wooden bolt be thrown back and the door creaked open, while an ogre peered down at them from about 1.5 meters tall. It shocked them at first, but Naruto, used to looking at a much larger orange furball in his mind, was the first to recover, and bowed, followed closely by Kagetachi. Hello, my name is Uzumaki Naruto, formerly of Konoha, and I am Kagetachi Kanem, the young lady said, and we would beseech entry into Ryozanpaku, so we may become Ronin ninja, they said together. The ogre face, with tan skin and short spiky silver hair, blinks rapidly, then looks slowly at Susumu, who nods. This causes the ogre face to eep, though it sound more like a pie, and quickly disappears back behind the door. They all hear rapidly scurrying feet, then hurried whispers, shocked almost panicked voices though muffled. Naruto and Kekkei share a bewildered expression, then look over at their monk companion, who had a sheepish grin on his face. Well, you see, the only other students we have so far is the elder's 14-year-old granddaughter, and her friend from school. We've never really had any outside students before, weren't expecting any, especially as young as Naruto, so we kind of caught them off guard. Naruto and Kanami's eyes could not get any bigger, so we're just a test case, are we not? The girl asked, to the monk's shameful nod. This time the look the two aspiring students shared was one filled with trepidation, but Naruto at least decided to make the most of this opportunity. Being ninja means to persevere in the face of hardship. He would not wilt like a lily, unless this school turned out to be a jip. They heard more running feet behind the wooden door, followed by what sounded like a collision, and a cry of pain, followed by an actual smack to a body, and more crying, which sounded more like the wailing of a small child. Then something sounding like the soothing voice of a mother, then there was quiet. The gate opened again, and this time what appeared was a face Naruto was somewhat familiar with. It was a towering, fair-skinned man with blue eyes and blonde hair. His hair reaches mid-back. He also sports a chest-length beard, macho mustache, and strands forming a thick, antenna-like shape, hanging in front of his face. Naruto's eyes bugged out of his head. He had seen color pictures, and a portrait in the Hokage's office of the fourth, well except for the lanky hair, the broader shoulders, the obvious age difference, Naruto could be looking at the spitting image of Minato Namikaze. The man in front of them smiled a welcoming smile, and spoke in a wisdom-filled voice, "Greetings, and welcome to Ryozanpaku, the school that trains ninja without the politics associated with living in a hidden village," he began, then introduced himself. "My name is Namikaze Hayato. I am the elder and headmaster of this school," then turning to present the gathering behind him. "And these are the instructors here at this school, and will be the ones guiding you on the road to becoming great shinobi and kunoichi." He pointed at Naruto then Kekkei. Naruto wanted to ask him so badly, but he knew best impressions were first impressions, so he held his tongue, and waited as Hayato introduced the rest of his staff. There was Hapachai Sakshai, known as the God of Death. He was a master of the taijutsu style called Kokonatsu Shurshur, and the master of assassination, harnessing even the earth at your feet to kill you, who at the moment was holding back sniffles, as a very beautiful, very well-endowed woman tried to comfort him. So, he was the one we heard crying, Naruto concluded. He was also the one who answered the door in the beginning. The woman comforting the master assassin was named Kosaka Mai, the undisputed mistress of all weapons, especially with the Nodachi, she carried with her everywhere, some say. She could even make the elements her weapon, and was second only to Sakshai in killing arts. Mai is a fairly tall and beautiful young woman, with a slender frame, a remarkably curvaceous figure, with long, waist-length, ebony hair, she tied back in a high ponytail, peach skin, and light purple eyes. She wears a purple choker around her neck, that contains numerous small pins, and a small pink kimono and long purple stockings, under which Naruto could see bandages over her chest, and a tight, mid-thigh miniskirt, with a small slit up the side. Yet, her most eye-catching feature are her eyebrows, which resemble lightning bolts. Standing a little away from the couple, to their right was another man, trying but failing not to cringe as Mai stared daggers at him. He may have been the undisputed master of taijutsu in the world, whose attacks were said to burn like hellfire, but he knew when he went too far, when he let his frustration mount so high that he lashed out at his friends. Sakaki Haru was shirtless, wearing a brown leather jacket, and blue jeans with bandages wrapped around his forearms. Sakaki is a tall and largely muscled, tan-skinned man. He has short, eggplant-colored hair with one strand hanging over his face. He also has a long scar that runs horizontally across the bridge of his nose. He comes off as threatening and intimidating most of the time, but he really cares for his friend. He just does not like to showcase his softer side very much. Standing to the other side of the couple was a man, openly ogling Mai's body, from behind Sakshai's back, who could rival the legendary super pervert himself in hentai, though he is a rabid fan of the book series called Ika Ika. As for rivals as a spy master, there were none better than Huan Ma. He is as slippery and stealthy a river, with deep currents. He was also a taijutsu master second only to Sakaki, but where Haru uses brute strength and overpowering might, Huan uses deceptive counters and quick thinking. He will defeat his opponent before the first punch was even thrown. Yet if one were to walk past him in a crowd, they wouldn't give him even a second glance. Huan can be described as a fairly short, middle-aged man, in typical merchant's clothing, who wears a hat to cover his bald head, with a long prickly mustache. Walking up to stand with his family, Koetsuji Susumu, said to rival even a Nara's intelligence, he is one of the most cunning strategists in the elemental nations, even better than Ma. Susumu is the general they call when an enemy must be defeated, at all costs. He will do it by making you defeat yourself, which just like his Aikijujutsu, can make the larger force's numbers count for nothing. These people were more of a family to each other than colleagues in a ninja school, and Naruto for one wished to become a part of it, if they allowed him, that is. Standing in front of the adults were two teenagers close to Kekkei in age. There was a voluptuous, blonde girl, who looked enough like Namikaze to be his granddaughter, which she was introduced as Mio. There was also a boy, with brown hair who seemed to be rather physically fit, but with gentle eyes that held conviction. He must be the other disciple Monk-san told us about. Namikaze-sama had finished introductions, and turned back to the new arrivals. Naruto motioned for Kekkei to go ahead. She bowed, hands folded in front of her, as a proper lady is taught, but like a true warrior, never took her eyes off the old man. I am Kagutachi Kekkei, and I humbly entreat thee, to earn the honor of being a student of your ninja school. Hayato looked at the others and received a nod of approval from the others. He turned back to the young lady. Then as headmaster of Ryozanpaku, Ronin School of Ninja Arts, I accept you as student. He looked over at their two students. Mio, would you please show Kagutachi-san to a room in the newly built girls' dormitory? I believe you could use a roommate, nay? The blonde girl known as Mio stepped forward. Yes, grandfather. She escorted Kekkei away to do as her grandfather asked. They all turned to the remaining traveler, who just stood there staring back at them, so Naruto bowed again. I, Uzumaki Naruto, once of Konoha village, respectfully request to join Ryozanpaku? Uzumaki, you say, from Konoha? Hayato asked, casting a look at Juan and Susumu, the latter of which nodded as he understood what that meant, and the former just quirked an eyebrow. You understand that the training here won't be like it was in your village? Namikaze the elder asked. They dole out training, as you can handle it. We won't go easy on you because you're a child. We will be as hard on you as we are on the others. So are you sure this is something you could want? I've never had it easy, old man, Naruto growled. Since before I could walk, life has been trying to wring me like a wet towel. I don't think you could do to me any worse than the people of my village ever did, and all they were doing was trying to kill me. This is something I choose, and if you accept me, I won't stop until I've surpassed every single one of you, in all of your specialties. That's a promise. As Naruto spoke, a metal blade formed in his hand, and he used it to slash his palm. I swear on my blood, I will surpass each and every one of you. So, do your worst, Namikaze-san, Naruto challenged, because I promise you, I've had it worse. Hayato, as well as the other S-ranked ninja in the yard, all shared a look. There was a terse nod from all of them, and Namikaze turned back to Naruto with a sadistic grin crossing his face. Then welcome to hell, my boy. Naruto smiled as he walked further into the compound, and as the doors closed behind him, he asked the old man, did you know, you look a lot like my hero? Oh, who might that be, Naruto-san? Hayato wondered. The fourth Hokage, Minato Namikaze, Naruto told him. Before I was forced to flee from the leaf, it was him I wanted to surpass, and become Hokage. You two could almost be brothers, except for the hair, Naruto added, but I guess being from the same clan explains it. Hayato smirked. Yes, that would explain it, he agreed, but as Naruto nodded in acceptance, Hayato laid a bombshell on Naruto. Another explanation could be that he's my nephew. Naruto just stopped, and Namikaze kept going as if nothing momentous had been said. Then the Kyuubi who had been listening said in his mindscape, holy shit. The doors to Ryozanpaku close, and that's the last we see of a stunned Naruto. Letters from Ryozanpaku. Sarutobi Hiruzen sat with his head bowed. He was massaging a throbbing vein in his head, as it pulsed from the blood thrumming through his brain. It has been 1 month since Naruto disappeared from the village. His other hand was drumming agitatedly on his desk. Between his restless fingers and the wood of the desk were 2 letters. One was from his surrogate grandson, Uzumaki Naruto, telling him things about what happened 1 month ago. The other side of the story he was told over a month ago. When the Sandaime returned to his village, 3 days after the brutal murders of over 30 people, he was told by his own council, and the Uchiha police force, that a 6-year-old boy was the one who did it, for no other reason than because he just went crazy and started attacking people. The forest of metal spikes blocking one section of the wall, circling Training Ground 44, was explained as the work of the demon. Really, Sarutobi thought bitterly, if it were from anybody else, the metal spikes would be considered miraculous, but coming from the demon, it was demonic power at its most evil. This was behavior the aged Hokage was loath to believe about his grandson, either out of tenderness and affection, or because it was so out of character. At no time in the past has Naruto Uzumaki ever instigated any of the confrontations in which he found himself, but is usually on the receiving end. Hiruzen raised his eyes to the first letter he had read that day. He had read the lines of the letter many times since he opened it, so he remembered the words as though he had written them himself. Dear Gigi, I am sorry, but I had to leave. I won't be coming back, either, not until I'm strong enough to take back everything the Uzumaki have ever given to Konohagakure no Sato. As the only surviving member of that clan, everything we gave to Konoha will be taken back, and used for a people who would be truly grateful for having it, not trampling over the last scion of that clan. That was just a long-term goal I have in mind, and not the true purpose of this letter. I am writing you to furnish you with my side of events for the night of the 10th of October, 1 month ago. It all started while I was on my way to Ichiraku's ramen stand. In fact, it happened within sight of it. If you need corroboration of what I am about to say, you may ask Tsuchi Ichiraku, as he saw how the whole thing started. And don't blame him for not stepping in for me. He is not a ninja, and he had to protect big sister Ayam. It wasn't his responsibility to step in. It was the damn Uchiha police's job to see to the safety of all citizens of Konoha, not just the ones they like. There was plenty of noise, enough to bring every elite ninja in the Uchiha ranks. I cannot imagine what could have prevented them from doing something to intervene. Getting back to point, the whole thing started as I was approaching Ichiraku's ramen stand, as one of the few civilians in Konoha to not only acknowledge me, but to actually like me. They were one of the few people there to treat me like family. Maybe it was because they knew my mother, Kushina Uzumaki, from when she was a genin and carried a certain fox within her body. Yes, I know about the Biju and Jinchuriki. We get along pretty well, having formed into a symbiotic relationship. The details are none of your business. It won't tell me whom my father is though. Said it wasn't time to know that, because it would put our life in jeopardy if I knew, and I trust it. Now more than I ever trusted you, Sarutobi-san. The Ichirakas invited me to get a free birthday bowl of ramen. They've been doing that for me for 2 years, since the orphanage. I was within sight of them. When I noticed the mob forming, it was such a precision trap, like someone had been informing someone of my habits and mentality. They knew I wouldn't risk getting the few people in that village that cared about me hurt, so instead of completing my journey to the stand, I took one last look and turned the corner away from them. I started to casually walk down the broad street toward the outskirts of the village. I got as far as I thought I needed to be, then broke into a run. The cast-off clothing I wore didn't hinder me too much, only the shoes I wore kept me from my top speed, so as soon as I could, I kicked them off, and kept running. Before long, we came to a fence, more like a wall, and there, one of the women of this village told me about the Kyubi, and what truly happened to the Yondaime. They knew I wasn't the Ninetales, but somehow, they knew that if by killing me, the fox inside me would die as well. You see, they knew I wasn't the demon. As for what happened, how I got away, I quite by accident discovered a new chakra release nature transformation, but it's not a bloodline limit, it is in fact a bloodline select. The people I'm staying with measured my nature affinities. It seems I have 3 of them: earth, wind, and fire. Anyway, that night, because I was so afraid even if I didn't show it, I instinctively sent my awareness and chakra into the ground, and found lots of metal, natural deposits of iron alloy. I brought it up and impaled those people. I think in total, 30 people died from my actions. Looking back, now that I have had time to remember, it reminded me of those stories merchants brought from the West, about a tyrannical prince named Dracula. If you're wondering where I am, I will tell you. I have become a student of Ryozanpaku, Ronin School for the Ninja Arts. When I graduate, when they deem me ready, I will not be bound to any village. It has only been 2 weeks since I joined, and I am already more at home here than I ever felt in the Leaf. From YGN, your grandson, Uzumaki Naruto Kekkei, of Konoha, Ryozanpaku, 2 Rivers Village. When Hirozen read it the first time, it brought tears to his eyes. He had lost someone he saw as part of his family, at the hands of the village he loved. The change from Gigi to Sarutobi-san, and the deliberate cross-outs, said more than any words that Naruto blamed the Sandaime for not protecting him, and Hirozen, now that he thought about it, could not bring himself to disagree. In a hidden ninja village, the Ryo, buck, really does stop with the leader of that village, who is supposed to protect all the village's citizens. Not only was Naruto's protection the Hokage's responsibility as a citizen of Konoha, and Hai no Kuni, but as a Jinchuriki, Naruto was a military asset, and was well within the Hokage's jurisdiction, while he remained within the village. Now, Naruto, who was not yet a ninja, was beyond the Hokage's power, and when he became a Ronin, would be the only independent Jinchuriki in the world. The third moved the letter from Naruto aside, and looked at the other letter from Ryozanpaku. That one was shorter, but it left a more lasting impression. Picking it up, Sarutobi read it again. Sarutobi, you were once able to convince me that my nephew's child would be safe if he stayed in your village. You promised to protect him. You have failed to do so. You broke your promise to me, and there will be repercussions. When I think the time is right, I will reveal to Naruto the entirety of his family. What he does with that knowledge will be up to him. Your negligence and blind faith in that insipid village of yours nearly cost my nephew his legacy. Naruto will be training at Ryozanpaku now, and even in the couple of weeks he has been here, not only has he been shown to have hitherto unheard of potential, but he has integrated himself into the hearts of nearly every person in this school. My Myo, her friend, and the young lady he arrived with all view him as a little brother. Myself and the other staff have taken to him like he is a young nephew. Even my most cynical staff members have become very protective of Naruto. He has found a home here, and will always be welcome. I am a superstitious man, Sarutobi, and I take my family very seriously, which now includes my nephew's son, and I say this with the deepest conviction I can convey through paper. If while training here and living under my roof, or within the village of 2 Rivers, something happens to this child, if he gets stabbed, blown up, has a flower pot fall on his head, or gets struck by lightning, then I will find the one responsible for it, and then I will reap vengeance upon that person. If it's a ninja, an Anbu, a Kage, I don't give a damn if Kami herself caused it to happen. They will feel the full force of my wrath, this I promise you. With full sincerity, Namikaze Hayato, elder of Ryozanpaku, Ronin School for the Ninja Arts. There was a knock at his office door, and his voice, clogged as it is with emotion, was unrecognizable as he spoke. Yes? The voice of his secretary answered through the door. The elders are here to see you, Hokage-sama. Hiruzen finally managed a grim smile. Show them in, please, he curtly ordered. Hi, Hokage-sama, the reply came. The door opened. The three people, who were supposed to advise him on policy, trooped into his office. Danzo had a somber expression on his face. He looked at Sarutobi and could see that his long-time friend's smile was not a happy one. He looked down at the letters on his Hokage's desk, then back up. Hokage-sama, what word do you have on the whereabouts of Uzumaki-san? The Hokage looked down at the letters, then putting his fingers on both of them pushed them toward his advisors. Mail for Ichiraku. The voice of Courier Ninja 607-14 could be heard from outside the closed stall. The Ichiraku family had not opened their stall to the public for a little over a month now. I am 12 was all but inconsolable when she heard the purely fabricated lie being told about their favorite customer. Her father felt very old at the moment, and he was terribly ashamed of his home. He moved to this village during Hashirama's reign as Hokage. He was a small boy with his family. His father said it was a new era for ninja, after all the ceaseless wars that more than a few non-combatants became caught up in. Who knew the era could have come and gone within his lifetime? That fact was not made more clear than when his fellow Konohans took pleasure in causing pain and misery to a small boy. Tucci was no more an expert on sealing arts than any other civilian. He did not know if the demon had, or could have, taken hold of the boy known as Naruto. He only knew that it had not happened yet, if it ever could, without the boy's blessing. He did have tremendous faith in the Fuinjutsu prowess of the Yondaime, and if he could not have done it, then his wife, lover, girlfriend, whatever, could have, because she was an Uzumaki, who had learned her sealing arts from Mito-sama herself, the premier sealing master of all time, and that, as well as how beautiful she was, were hard, cold facts. If there was much about sealing, Mito Uzumaki did not know, then it just had not been invented, or discovered yet. Kushina was Mito's disciple in Fuinjutsu, Uzumaki Fuinjutsu, who were reputed to be the best in the known world, and the reason it took 3 whole villages, sending a large force from each, to destroy. The old man had faith in both of Naruto's parents, when it came to sealing, and for that fact, he never once doubted who was looking back at him through the boy's eyes. Mail for Ichiraku, came the voice of the courier ninja again. Tucci stood up, making his way to the entrance of his ramen stand. I am Ichiraku. The ninja postman looked at the old man, studying him, then smiled. Is I am-san here today? At Tucci's inquiring face, the ninja answered, there is an inquiring question. She needs to answer in order to verify. You are the people I must deliver to, he said, and there was a hint of color in the courier's face. Tucci studied the man in front of him suspiciously. Before warily turning to call up the stairs into the apartment he shared with his daughter. I am Chan. Yes, father, came the reply. Would you please come down here for a moment, Tucci asked. Be right there, father, another reply came, and a set of heavy steps trudged steadily down to the ground floor. Ayame had seen better days. On the night of Naruto's birthday, she seemed to take great pains to dress up, even donning a very ceremonial kimono. If Tucci did not know any better, she looked like she was getting ready for a suitor. She's much too young to be thinking about that yet. Plus, after the last month, there wasn't any boy in this godforsaken village he would deem worthy of his daughter, if there ever was. Now, since Naruto ran away, she looked as if her world had stopped, and her bloodshot eyes gave mute evidence that she had been crying recently. What is it, father? She asked, and though respectful to her father, her tone was full of melancholy. Then in an angry tone, if you want to open the ramen stand, that's fine, but we're charging double to anybody who says anything remotely disparaging about Naruto, she declares. Tucci waves off her comment, and points to the courier ninja, standing at the entrance. This man has a message for us, but says you have to answer an identifying question. I am turned to look at the courier, and nodded. Yes, I am. Ichiraku. The hesitation was slight, but it was noticeable. How may I help you? She asked in her best neutral waitress voice. I have a package for I am Ichiraku, the ninja stated. You need to answer a question that will identify you. Very well, I am sighed, just hoping to get this over with, so she can retreat back into her room. What is the question? The courier nin blushed, but his voice remained rock solid as he asked. The first boy you ever kissed was not your age. How old was he at the time? And what did you promise to do on his birthday? Tucci gasped. I am Chan, in rebuke. It was like the sun coming up on her face, and the biggest, brightest, happiest smile to grace her lips in a month. The first boy I kissed was 5 years old at the time, and I promised I'd marry him on his birthday, after he became Chunin, no matter how long it took. The one I'm delivering the message for said if you didn't say that last part, you were probably not the real I am-san, the courier stated, as he ran through some hand seals. Before a puff of smoke later, a tiny box was in his hand. And not to give this to you, because you whispered the last part into his ear. Ayame had a blush on her cheeks as she nodded. That's right, she said with a giggle. She took the tiny box from the courier nin, and thanked him, just as he disappeared in another puff of smoke. Tucci had hands on hips and looked at his daughter, with a stern look on his face. I am Yuzum. What do you mean you kissed a boy, and then promised to marry him? You're too young to even think about getting married. Ayame barely even looked at her father, keeping her face on the box, eyes in a slightly wistful cast. It doesn't require much in the way of explanation, Dad. There was no uncertainty in my statement. The first boy I kissed, just so happens to be the last man I ever want to kiss." She looked at the box, and admired the exterior. It was a plain box with a vanilla finish, and not much embellishment, but to I.M. Ichiraku, it was the equivalent of a treasure chest. "As for your statement, about when I should or shouldn't be thinking about getting married, I'm afraid you have no say in when or how I think of anything, as is, to whom I get married," she lightly rebuked her father. "All you must decide is whether you approve or disapprove, which won't change my mind at all. We'll still become husband and wife. Your choice of approval will decide if you're invited, and whether you ever get to meet your grandchildren, or not." She cast him a steely gaze that said, "Just see if I'm kidding." She turned back to the box and opened it. Tucci was taken aback by I.M.'s resolve in this matter, so in frustration, not connecting the dots yet, and asked, "Just who is this Casanova?" That seemed to move my normally meek little girl into such passion for him, when she's barely even started liking boys. "Naruto," she answered without a single hesitation. "He's the first boy I've ever kissed, really kissed, and that was all it seemed to take, before I fell madly in love with him." But he's so much younger than you," Tucci complained, "and how will you even find him, when the time comes?" "We don't know where he is," he informed her. "I know, father," she said absently, as she read the letter that came with a ring that looked like it was made of bronze. "But when it comes to love, age is nothing but a number. And Naruto's in the village of 2 Rivers, and is part of an organization called Ryozanpaku, a ninja school for Ronin, and he's become an apprentice metalsmith and metallurgist. That's pretty smart. Even shinobi and kunoichi here in Konoha go through dry spells for missions." I.M. finished reading and looked up at her dumbstruck father. "All he said they discovered 3 Kekkei Genkai, nature transformations," she added, "magnet, scorch, and lava, all of which would lend itself well to smithing and metal sciences." Tucci's brain finally caught up with what his daughter was saying, and grinned. "Well, I'm glad you found someone, my dear," he said, as he walked closer to his daughter, gave her a fatherly hug, and kissed her temple. "As for my approval, well, that'll depend upon what kind of man Naruto becomes by the time he comes to claim you." "Did he say when that might be?" the ramen stand manager asked. "He doesn't know for sure," I.M. answered. She held up the ring. "This is a promise ring. Naruto made it himself. His first solo attempt." She slipped it on, and it sized itself to her right ring finger. "He says he should complete his formal training and apprenticeship in total about 7 years. Then he becomes a journeyman metalworker, where he looks for a specialty, and earns his reputation as a ninja," she explained to her father. Her tone turned sad. "The ring is to let him know if I'm still interested in marrying him. If I ever change my mind, or have a change of heart, I should send the ring back to him through Ryozanpaku." Her eyes seemed to water at that. How could he think I could be so fickle? Tucci placed a comforting arm around his 12-year-old baby girl. "You have to understand, honey," he began as she looked at him. 7 years is a long time, almost a decade. And people change, hearts change, especially teenagers, which you are about to become. Naruto hasn't had very much, if anything, to depend upon in his entire life. It's hard to shake that way of thinking, even for adults," he explained to his daughter. "What he's doing is letting you know that if your feelings for each other diminish, or you both find other people you care about more, you can both do as your heart desires." I.M. looked at her father. There was determination in her eyes. "I won't change my mind," she declared, "and my heart solidly belongs to Naruto." 2 Rivers Village. 6 years later, Haru Sakaki and Huan Ma stepped into the pub after a hard day's training. Their most promising disciple was graduating tomorrow. After that he would begin his year-long contractual obligation to Ryozanpaku, taking missions as they were assigned to him by the elder, and all but 20% of what he made on those missions would go back to the school. They would range in everything from simple chores and bandit extermination, to espionage and sabotage, and though these were the only ones he could refuse, even assassinations. Juan and Haru were grateful to their student. They did not know if it was luck, karma, or a blessing from Sanzai no Sanban no Hashira, the 3 pillars of existence. But ever since they took him in and began training him, Ryozanpaku has gained more students than they knew what to do with. Some came to refine their skills, others were only there to learn how to call out their chakra. Either way, their school was flourishing, and though they did not know why, or how, but unreasonably, they placed it all at the feet of Naruto Uzumaki. They bellied up to the bar and ordered their drinks, beer for Sakaki and mulled wine for Ma. They were nursing their beverages, when the same thing that had been weighing upon their minds all day bubbled to the surface. "So, have you thought of anything we can do for Naruto, to thank him for bringing the school so much success?" the taijutsu master asked the spy master, looking at him from the corner of his eye. Juan gave his best friend a hard, weary look, then sighed quietly. "Are you sure we need to do anything extra for him? I mean, you've taught him everything he needs to know when it comes to taijutsu." "I have taught him my way of taijutsu, as have Sakshai and Susumu." My Kirai, Pretty, says he's beginning to test her in weapons, even wooden, or non-metallic weapons. He's phenomenal with shuriken, kunai, and saban, so much so that he can only improve his skills during autumn, when the leaves are falling. He practices his chakra control, using the leaf-sticking exercise, the only thing he was able to learn in that infernal village, while walking down at the waterfront. Naruto's ninjutsu prowess is comparable to the copy ninja, with all 3 of his nature transformations, and all of his bloodlines, and casting him in a genjutsu is all but impossible. nothing short of the Izanagi is a sure thing. He doesn't just break out of them, he thinks his way out of them, looking around for eavesdroppers. Juan turned back to Haru, but still lowered his voice and covered his mouth with his goblet. His tenant helps him with that. His stealth, evasion, survival, and escape skills are second to none. For one as young as Naruto, his advanced senses help him with that, and are also perfect for spying and tracking. Sakchai and Mai have trained him thoroughly in assassination methodology, and have taught him the counters to the silent killing and instant kill techniques, and trained him to fight blind, using all of his senses. I and Koetsuji have taught him many ways he can use information. He's very clever and astute, can keep his cool in stressful situations. He made excellent grades in school too, so he's not ignorant. Juan Ma sat back and relaxed. He has all of the tools he needs to become a great shinobi, and is in my humble estimation, already an A-ranked ninja. He looked over at Sakaki, and added, really the only thing he needs is experience, and he could become S-ranked in no time. Sakaki nodded in agreement. He's also been getting compliments from his apprenticeship trainer, Jiyoung Moon-san. She said. His work was the best she's ever seen for an apprentice. And before they left on their honeymoon, Mio and her sister wife, Kanae, worked customer service for the shop. They said, Naruto doesn't use his chakra for anything while working there, and when asked he said, he'd just be cheating himself if he took shortcuts. He wants the experience of hard work, which helps him as much in his physical training as the exercises we put him through. That's not all we discovered from his apprenticeship, Ma reminded his fellow instructor. Remember that accident a couple of years ago? A bin of metal cast-offs tipped over on top of Naruto. The parts that touched his skin were absorbed into his body, and he can now produce that metal type from his body, in any configuration he knows, though that's mostly a matter of shape transformation, not chakra control. Haru smirked. So it's a bad idea to try attacking Naruto with metal weapons, he chuckled. I wonder if he can eat metal, like Hashirama Senju was reputed to be able to do. Sakaki mused. That's a myth, Haru, came a woman's sharp voice behind him. Grandpa was still human, and nobody can eat wood, unless you are a beaver or a termite. The two turned because it was the voice of a friend, and smiled. Staring back at them was one of the most beautiful women in the world, and probably the strongest kunoichi alive, one that even my respects, Tsunade Senju, aka the Slug Princess. The two men had an epiphany, and smiled at each other before grinning, and turning back to the woman. Ma was so focused that for once he did not even ogle her, and he asked, say Tsunade-san, how is your debt situation these days? Tsunade looked at them cautiously. About the same. Why? She asked him suspiciously. The two men looked at each other, like little boys getting a gift from Kami, then turned back to her. Both had evil grins. Because we know somebody who can get you out of them. Her eyes widened, then she asked, who can do that, and what would I have to do for this person's help? Go to Ryozanpaku, tomorrow, Juan said as he and Haru stood up. Request a mission, and ask for Naruto Uzumaki. He will help you. What? Tsunade asked in outrage. And somewhere in Konoha, Hiruzen woke from his Ika-fueled dream in a cold sweat. The beautiful, buxom blonde sat across the table from her opponent. Her expression was unreadable. They were playing a friendly game of Nijuchi. 21. The dealer had just dealt his own hand, and busted. The dealer turned the woman's face card over. She got a 10 of shuriken, clubs, and the Empress of Kunai, spades, equaling 20. Only one number could beat that hand. The dealer turned over her adversary's cards and they read, Deuce of diamonds, 9 of hearts, and after requesting another card, the Emperor of Kunai, for a total of 21. The woman's eyes were wide with surprise. It was not because she lost, which happened a lot, it was the fact that this was his 50th win in a row, while playing blackjack. They had been playing gambling games for a few hours now, and the only time her opponent was never assured of victory was when they played poker. But even then, he got the cards he needed, more than 80% of the time. Unbelievable, she exclaimed. I've been gambling since I was a small child, but I've never seen a streak like yours. I've never lost as many rounds in even my worst trips through the casinos, Tsunade Senju, the only kunoichi among the Sannin declared, as I did this morning. Her opponent just grinned. Kami and her siblings have always smiled upon me during these games, the Jinju shinobi told her. By the way, we weren't introduced when my esteemed teacher sat us down here to play games. My name is Naruto Uzumaki, from Two Rivers, and as of this morning, a shinobi out of Ryozanpaku. He introduced himself. And I already know who you are, Tsunade-sama. The kunoichi of the Sannin's mouth quirked into a small upturn of her lips. Are you talking about my reputation as the legendary sucker? She asked suggestively, which caused Naruto to blush at some of the thoughts a name like that conjured in his mind. Her mouth widened into a true grin. Or are you referring to my power as a ninja? You shouldn't let your imagination run away with you, Naruto-san. I wouldn't want you to become a hentai maniac, like my incorrigible teammate. That'll never happen, Naruto assured her. I have a vendetta against perverts. I had to contend with my fair share of them while I was on the road, after fleeing that village your grandfather founded. If you don't mind me asking, Tsunade asked reticently. He indicated for her to continue. What made you decide to leave the village? The citizens of Konoha decided they wanted to band together to murder me, he said, for something that wasn't my fault, and to kill the Biju within me. What? She asked. Surely the Hokage would have protected you, and my grandfather gave the biju to the villages to maintain a balance of power. Tsunade trailed off at the glare she got from the young adult across the table from her. Unfortunately, the Hokage wasn't there when it happened. He was away in Sunagakure, attending the Chunin exam finals, Naruto exclaimed, and among the ANBU, there were only a handful of them to ever protect me without direct orders from the Hokage, but none of them ever showed up that night. I don't know why, and nobody from the Uchiha police force ever lifted a finger to help me, the redhead informed her, the other 24 times. The citizens of Konoha tried to murder me after I was evicted from the orphanage I lived in for 3 years of my life. And Senju Hashirama had no right to do that to sentient beings, Naruto calmly informed her. The biju were charged by the Sage of Six Paths himself to act as a balance to the power humans had gotten through the use of chakra. When the Shodaime used his would release to ensnare and imprison the tailed beasts, he wasn't ensuring peace, he was altering the nature of our world to suit himself. Tsunade was breathing hard. She may not love the village of Konoha, but she did not like when anyone attacked a member of her family, especially her grandpa. She stood up, slamming her fist into the table, driving it into the floor of the room they occupied, and leaned over to glare into the face of the upstart. How would you know it was Rikudo Sennin? Nobody knows where the biju came from. How would you know anything about the biju? And sentient, don't make me laugh. They're nothing but unthinking beasts? If anyone ever bothered to read the histories about sightings of the biju, they could put the pieces together for themselves, Naruto stated calmly. Oh really? Tsunade challenged, and sneered, and I suppose you, a whelp, wet behind the ears ninja, have in your great wisdom put the pieces together, when people 3 times your age have not? He just nodded, so she challenged, well then lay it all out for me, Scholar-san. What have we all missed that you have finally come along to educate us over? Very well, listen closely, Senju-sama, Naruto told her with a neutral tone of voice. Fact 1. There were no mentions of the biju during any of the events that the Sage of Six Paths is said to have acted. In fact, nobody even mentioned them, until right after the founder of our civilization's reputed death. But they suddenly appeared out of nowhere, as soon as he died. According to nearly everybody who has studied the biju, they are walking forces of nature, and take pleasure in causing destruction. Surely if such beings existed before that time, there would be some mention of the sage doing battle with them? My hypothesis is this. Biju were created by the sage to keep humans in check, since we're the only other creatures on the planet that can use chakra like we do. In fact, with some of the things we can do with chakra, if left unregulated, we could render this planet barren of life. And what were they made from? The kunoichi of Sannin asked. Something like a being made of pure chakra couldn't have just come from one old man's imagination. There had to have been a model, or prototype to work from. She saw the look of uncertainty cross his face, and thought he could not answer her question. Didn't think of that one, did you, brat? Actually I have, but this is more of a guess than a hypothesis. The QB refuses to answer any questions about its origins, Naruto stated. I believe that Rikudo Sennin was a Jinchuriki, the first Jinchuriki, and he housed a being within him that was more powerful than all of the current biju in existence today combined, by a factor of 10. That widened the eyes of all the other people in the room, who had been in the room with them to watch their game, and were now witnessing their argument. If the biju of today are called demons, because of their power, then this being could be considered a devil for its power. I believe this being was not just the template for which the sage created the biju but was also the carving tool he used to make the biju we know of today. Noting there was no way to prove or disprove said hypothesis, or their true purpose, Tsunade chose to back off, and get to the other part of their fight, really. Unless there was a written record, or we have testimony from the sage himself, we'll never know if the brat is right or wrong. Let's table that discussion for now, because there really is no way to prove or disprove your beliefs, she suddenly sounded calm, which narrowed Naruto's eyes at the sudden change. Rikudo Sennin lived over 4,000 years ago. Any evidence had to have been washed away by the ravages of time. What about their sentience, she asked. What makes you think they have any form of intelligence besides that of an animal? Naruto just smiled, and it was not a pleasant smile. This is easier to prove, Tsunade-sama. In fact, if you deny it, you will be denying your own grandfather's reputation, because it's the catalyst for his famed battle at the Valley of the End, with Uchiha Madara. Tsunade waved her hand for him to go on, as she understood the stakes. We all know how that battle played out, with Madara losing to both of your grandparents. Kyuubi was placed in a genjutsu by Madara before the battle, to increase his chances of winning. That's a fact that your grandfather never disputed, do you? Tsunade shook her head. Granddad never failed to mention that whenever he told the story to me as a child. Well, Kyuubi was used in that battle, and if it wasn't for Mito-sama sealing the fox within herself, Hashirama-sama would have lost. Or at least it would have taken longer to finish and would have probably taken a toll on both of your grandparents. I know all of this, brat, Tsunade huffed. I don't need a history lesson. It just so happened that at one time, Konoha held 2 of the powers that could be used to control the biju. Madara's Mangekyo Sharingan and Grandpa's Kekkei Genkai would release. What is your point? And what does it have to do with the issue of biju sentience? If the tailed beasts aren't sentient, how could Madara put them under a genjutsu in the first place? The boy now turned legal adult asked her. Tsunade's eyes could not get any bigger. Why have I never noticed that? But someone else attempted to answer the question, another student of Ryo Zanpaku. Because they're still animals, the nameless man stated. They may not be as smart as humans, but they still have a mind and senses. This person trailed off as others were looking at him, then turned to the instructors of Ryo Zanpaku. Did I say something wrong? Susumu smiled benevolently. No, it just marks a gap in your knowledge we still haven't covered yet. The nameless student was curious. But no time like the present. For one thing, humans are animals, we all come from the earth, are made of atoms, and we're made of meat, just like any other animal that exists upon this good earth. That, however, is beside the point of this discussion. The truth of the matter is human beings and now Biju are the only creatures on this planet that can be placed under a genjutsu. The other creatures of Earth experience the world through their instincts and senses, which are usually more powerful than ours. Genjutsu, even sensory genjutsu, takes over our reason, it takes our common sense and redirects it along the avenue the genjutsu user wants it to travel. Koetsuji instructed his students. The one who asked the question had his head down in shame. At this, Naruto spoke up to him from his position at the table. Hey, dude-san, don't be ashamed of not knowing something. That's why you're here, to learn things like this. He rebuked his junior in the school. The only shame is in refusing to learn these things and willfully remaining ignorant. Don't worry, Kohai, he said with a grin, pointing to the instructors of Ryo Zanpaku. They'll make sure you know everything they have to teach you, and genjutsu basics is one of the first things you learn here. The junior student, who was older than Naruto by 3 years, but dwarfed by Naruto in sheer prowess at the moment, returned the ginger's grin with a grateful one of his own. Naruto turned back to the blonde kunoichi and looked at her fully, for the first time. She was wearing a forest green jacket, over a gray kimono top with short sleeves, which was held closed in such a way as to emphasize her bust. Without revealing any more flesh than she wanted, it was held closed by a blue-gray obi, and matching pants, while on her feet was a pair of open-toed, strappy, high-heeled, black sandals, red nail polish on her fingers and toes, and wore a soft pink lipstick. Naruto noticed a necklace around her neck, disappearing between her cleavage. She was a lithe woman and in spite of her top-heavy attributes, possessed a lean muscular frame. He could tell that much from the impressions he got from how her body displaced the atmosphere. Yet there was something off about her appearance. How she appeared on the exterior to his enhanced fox senses did not harmonize with what his metal sense was telling him about her body chemistry. Two of the businesses that were a steady stream of income for Ryo Zanpaku, before the sudden influx of students, was Susumu's bone setter, chiropractor clinic, and Juan's acupressure clinic. Both required extensive knowledge of human anatomy, and when Naruto was not training or working in his apprenticeship, he helped them in their clinics. This was where they found out Naruto's metal sense was as good as an X-ray when looking at the body, even better because he could assess their body chemistry and aid in any diagnoses. Naruto learned how to take someone apart through his two sensei. He also learned how to put them back together again, mostly. Naruto looked at the time and shrugged. Whatever it is, it's her business, and now I've got to go attend to my business. My last days as an apprentice metalworker and metallurgist. Naruto stood up and stretched his own swimmer's build body. Today he wore a navy blue, one-piece, jumpsuit, what he normally wore when he worked for Moon-sama. He picked up a utility belt and buckled it on, then spoke. This has been fun, Tsunade-sama, he said to her. I hope I passed whatever you were testing me for. Her face revealed nothing of her opinion of him. But I've got to get to work. It wouldn't do for me to be late on my last day as an apprentice. Tomorrow I begin my journeyman training as a metalworker. It's also the day I begin my obligatory, contractual year of service to Ryo Zanpaku, he told her. I wonder what their first mission for me will be, he wondered with excitement. Naruto turned and walked out the door, with a jaunty wave behind him. After Naruto left for work, the instructors ushered their other students out of the room. They were in the private residence of the instructors, and while it was an open-door policy, the staff of Ryo Zanpaku liked their privacy. Once the other students were all gone, they invited Tsunade to eat and drink with them, and she accepted, but asked for non-alcoholic beverages, which brought her a surprised look from some of the family. Shizen's off at that medical school for the next 2 years. It's not as much fun drinking alone. Tsunade smiled. I actually miss her nagging me about my bad habits. I'll have to double up on that kind of stuff when she gets back to make up for all that I missed. While she was gone, she chuckled. Haru just guffawed. You really like abusing that woman, Tsunade, don't you? Tsunade just laughed. It's good for her. If she can put up with me, she'll be able to handle any man she may end up falling for, and any grandkids she gives me will be a snap to deal with compared to me. Ha ha ha, Hayato chuckled. In your own way, cousin, you're as incorrigible as Jiraiya-san, he declared, with your drinking and gambling. Tsunade scoffed good-naturedly, then got serious. So, yesterday, Juan-san and Haru-san told me about coming here to help me get a handle on my debt situation, she explained, but I'm not okay with borrowing money from family. Hayato-kun, you and Miyoko-chan, may she rest in peace, may be the offspring of great Uncle Tobarama, but you're the only family I have left, and I couldn't take it if we let money come between us. Plus, I know Ryo Zanpaku, even with the influx of students, is still not totally solvent, so you cannot give me anything that would do more than keep me in living expenses for a few months. So what did they have in mind to help me get out in front of my finances? You saw the first part of our plan earlier, Juan reminded her, when we had you play, Naruto-kun. We believe, Naruto could help you out of your debts. How exactly can he help me? She asked apprehensively. if you're thinking he could use his shinobi skills to get me enough money to pay them off, I could do that myself. If I really wanted to? The only reason I haven't tried that is I am still, technically, a kunoichi of Konoha, and missions like that would have to go through them, which would give them grounds for calling me back. So, what can the brat do that I can't? She asked, looking between them all. He can go to all of the places you owe money, play them, and instead of collecting his winnings, he can ask them to forgive your debts. Juan gave her the bare bones of their idea. Tsunade's jaw dropped open at the idea, and she was not blown away with the idea. Now, hold on, just because I lost to him today, doesn't mean anybody else will. I'm not the best gauge on the outcome of these kinds of games, she advised them. Even if I was, there's no reason why he would win every game he plays, let alone every hand of cards, roll of the dice, or rotation of a roulette wheel. I need a sure thing to get me out from under my debts, not a reliance on faith. The other instructors at Ryozanpaku were all grinning as she finished, and Mai spoke. Do you know how many hands of cards I've won since Naruto began living here? Tsunade shook her head. 0, she answered, then turned to her colleagues. Gentlemen, I've lost to him every time we play any kind of gambling game. Susumu answered. Dice, cards, the shell game, any result that could be left to simple chance, almost always falls in his favor. Sakchai never wins money games with Naruto-kun, the giant assassin admitted with a glum face. He beats me every time we play, Haru grumbled. It's no longer fun to play when he's in the game, because he's almost assured of winning. We first began playing poker with him to introduce him to deception, and how to spot tells, Juan explained. He could already read people fairly well, when he got here. We merely refined his instincts, and taught him how to hide his true emotions, the spy master told her. Poker is perfect for learning how to bluff, but he never lost, not once. So we turned it into a way to manipulate people with just a look and an expression, to get them to put more into the pot than they realized. He got good at that, Juan told her with pride in his student. Very good. Hayato was nodding in agreement. That's how we introduced Mio, Kan-aim, and their new husband Kaya Shirakawa to deception as well. They played for chore duties around the school. Certain chores were more onerous than others. Once we introduced this method of deciding who did what chores, Naruto only ever had to do the easy tasks around the compound, and that's a fact. Tsunade eyed her cousin dubiously. If I accepted his help, how much would you charge for his services? She asked, then reminded him of her monetary situation. I don't have much in the way of cash on hand. Also, most places I owe money don't even let me through the door anymore. They say it would be just a waste of time for me to play, because I owe so much in them. Namikaze cupped his chin in thought, then looked up and answered, while still in deep thought, I won't charge you any money, you can consider it a familial favor. That being said, we can't stake you. As you said, we're not in a position to spend money like that at the moment. Then he remembered something. Hayato's head came up with a smile. I've got it, and this'll be a good mission for the kid to get his feet wet with and place him in a true combat situation. What are you talking about, Hayato Otoko? Tsunade asked irritably, finally becoming impatient, even with her great-uncle's son, the family Tobarama Senju, raised away from Konoha, because he did not want them targeted like his brother's family. Juan has uncovered intelligence that the thief Gosunkuji, aka Nairu, the nail, was recently seen in Ishino-kuni, he answered his cousin. He stole the Misogi tea jar, owned by the daimyo of Okino-kuni. Hayato told her, the daimyo is offering a year 50,000 bounty on his head, dead or alive, so he's keeping a low profile, somewhere in the land of stone according to reports. This would be a good first mission for Naruto to tackle. It'll allow him to test his skills against a real opponent that's trying to kill him. Then what? The slug princess asked the older man. What happens after he captures this nail guy? We'll waive the usual 80% fee, and call it a stake, which will fund the start of Naruto's mission with you, cousin, Hayato replied, then send Naruto with you, for as long as you need him, or until his year-long contractual obligation with Ryozanpaku is completed, whichever happens first. Ryozanpaku won't be out any actual cash, he assured his fellow staff members, who all nodded in understanding. After that, when Naruto is officially clear of us, he will have a nice windfall for this mission, until he starts working regularly, either as a shinobi or a metalsmith, and you'll have a healthy financial profile. Tsunade was pinching her chin in thought, then turned to say, I won't accept this service for free. I want to give Ryozanpaku and Naruto something of equal value for doing this for me. If not money, then something else you need, a favor, to work as an instructor, anything so that I won't feel like a freeloader. If I go forward with this idea. They all began to think of what would be equal to helping Tsunade get stable financial footing, when Susumu and Juan perked up as an idea formed in their minds. They looked at each other to be sure they had the same idea, and nodded, but it was Susumu who spoke. There may be something you can do for us, similar to what this mission may do for you. Tsunade waved her hand for him to get on with it, and that is just what the ninja monk did. Any business suffers if most people don't know about it, or have the wrong clientele, and ninja training is no exception, sadly, but we don't want every Chang, Lee, and Tanaka walking in off the street and asking to be a ninja. As a ninja yourself, you would know, or at least be able to judge, whether an individual is a serious student, has the right temperament to be a ninja, or would use their skills to terrorize normal people. If you could mention our name and location to the first two types and not the latter type, that could generate the right kind of buzz for our school. especially coming as an endorsement from Tsunade Senju, the Slug Princess, and Kunoichi of the Sannin. Should we earn that, of course, would go a long way towards getting us on firm, even financial footing like you. That would be payment enough for us. That's not a bad idea, Tsunade agreed, but what about Naruto? He should get something extra, in addition to the money he makes gambling, which is not a sure thing. She saw their protests but overrode them. Whatever it is that allows him to win repeatedly could turn on a dime. It may not like that Naruto is using his luck to simply make money, or in this case help me out of my debt situation. Either way, he needs something guaranteed to him, whether he can deliver me out of my money troubles or not. Tsunade-chan, right, Sakurai rumbled, Naruto-kun needs something that stays with him, for all time, not just for mission. We thought of that, Ma jumped in, before an argument could break out. During that entire year he's with Tsunade, she could take him on as an apprentice, not just for shinobi work either. At the same time, the rest grinned a knowing smile, but he continued without prompting, as you know, Tsunade-chan, Koetsuji and I have run a pretty successful pair of health clinics. Susumu-kun manipulates the skeletons of his patients, while I concern myself with pressure points and the muscles of the body, all of which we've taught Uzumaki, and have even certified him to practice without us being present. He has a sensory jutsu he calls metal sense, which allows him to determine the blood chemistry of a patient, and deliver fairly accurate diagnoses in seconds. That would take minutes using medical chakra, which he can also use by the way. We taught him everything you've taught us about medical chakra, he informed Tsunade, who nodded for him to go on, though she had an inkling as to what they wanted her to teach him. But as accomplished as we are with medical chakra, we still pale in comparison to the mistress of medicine herself. Therefore, as compensation for his help in this matter of your finances, we want you to train him as a medical ninja, Huan concluded, but then added, does that sound like fair compensation to you, Tsunade-chan? I'd be delighted, and I'll train him for as long as he wishes me to, she answered immediately, regardless of the mission status. The staff of the Ryozampaka smiled, great big smiles. Now, before we begin, tell me how much he knows about his family? Bounty hunter. It was an idyllic summer day. The sun was directly overhead, the flowers of the plains resting just before the border to Ishi were in full bloom, but the heat was not too oppressive. The winds were howling right out of the north, which cooled the skin enough to make the last part of the journey to Stone Nation rather pleasant for the traveler approaching the border. This drifter was dressed ideally for long treks, in a forest green, one-piece, jumpsuit, with a pair of brown, flexible, workman's boots, a brown utility belt, on which he wore a pouch carrying an alloy of metal pellets he invented called Mangaloi Titantung, with a tanto blade, purely utilitarian, no frills, and a stout, blue, denim jacket with a canvas hood, which at the moment was thrown back, and on his head was a red ball cap, with the symbol for journeyman, and another for metalworker across the brow. The cap rested upon the red hair of Naruto Uzumaki, which was gathered into a ponytail by a black hairband, and felt to be even with his shoulder blades. Naruto was tall, 5 feet 5 inches, muscular, nimble, and quick as the wind he now mastered, for a 12-year-old preteen. His violet eyes were clear of any vestiges from his past, and now looked upon his years in Konoha as a proving ground of sorts. Naruto still has not forgiven the Leaf for the way they treated him, but has accepted those events, as a part of his past, and has made his peace with them. He no longer hates Konoha, because to hate something means to care about it. In a way, hate means to care about the well-being and health of a thing. You wish for its destruction. Well, Naruto does not wish for the Hidden Leaf Village's destruction, because as long as the Ichirakus remain there, especially Iam, whom he writes every month, and receives similar letters, he will pray to the 3 pillars for that village to remain as strong as possible. Though some of his prayers were answered with a no, when the Uchiha clan was wiped out in one night by the clan heir, leaving only one survivor. Other than that, the village appeared to remain strong, and it was that perception at least, which stayed the hands of most of the villages, as only Cloud seemed to have tried to kidnap the heiress to the Hyuga clan, an incident which seemed to change the girl somehow. Details were sketchy, and the fallout was kept quiet, if there was any from the regular citizens of Konoha, at least according to Iam's account. Not that Naruto cared about that either way, other than to shake his head in sympathy for the little girl, just a year younger than him, or the sole survivor of the Uchiha clan, whomever it may be. As long as Iam-chan and Tuchi-san were okay, Naruto gave no thought to the stability of the leaf. Naruto approached the border to stone, and came upon a marker of stones, piled high, leading to an apex, and next to it was a stone marker, that looked eerily like a tombstone, with Ishikuni inscribed upon it. He passed through a narrow pass, making sure to remain alert with all of his senses. There was a surprising amount of metal deposits saturating the walls of the pass. I don't need to carry any obvious weapons with me, our world is my weapon, and so is my body. Don't get cocky, Naruto, Kyubi rebuked him. You never know what tricks an enemy will employ. Thanks, Kyubi. I was in danger of going Uchiha on you, Naruto retorted sarcastically. No charge, Kit, the fox replied, appearing to miss Naruto's tone of thought. But really, the Biju could see his thoughts, so it read Naruto's moods as easily as one might read a book. It's my job as your conscience to keep you from getting a big head. Naruto traveled out of the pass and came out over a ridge, looking down upon a small, one-horse town. From his position on the ridge, it was completely made of wood, and only had one street. There's Bosiki, he said to himself. This is a good place to start my hunt. This shithole looks a little rough. Kit, QB warned, keep your head on a swivel, and your senses peeled. Naruto nodded to acknowledge his tenant, and was about to head on down, when from below his position, some crows flew up into the sky, with startled cries. Naruto barely reacted to the surprising birds, as he continued to stare down the ridge at the town. A murder of crows, not a good omen. The bounty hunter from the leaf. Naruto walked into the town of Bosiki, quite easily. It seemed to be devoid of life, and the only moving things he could see at first was a single tumbleweed crossing the street. He made it a little further in, and felt more than saw the fellows loitering along the boardwalk. They were dressed in drab clothes, ideally suited for a border town like this. They all looked at him with hard looks, which he ignored, dismissing their perceived danger as easily as he had the wind that blew along the street of the town. He knew why they stared. A 12-year-old kid, a new face, was willingly walking into their town at the ass end of the world, with no backup, and no parents. Only two types of children would do that, runaways and ninja, and Naruto was too confident in himself to be a runaway. Since they know what you are, it would be foolish to act meek toward them, QB offered, would it not? Yep. Don't all these deadbeats have anything better to do with their time, he said in a normal voice, than stare at strangers? He did not raise his voice, but spoke at normal volume either way. Some of the loiterers heard him and began grumbling. None of them chose to accost him, which at least saved them their dignity, not to mention their lives, because while Naruto would never seek to add to his body count, he would not hesitate to do it, if he needed to fulfill his mission. As a Ronin, he would need to cultivate a ruthless reputation, but also be willing to show mercy, if he was given the opportunity, because only the strong may be merciful. Naruto was passing by a particular section of wall, when he came upon a wanted poster of the man he was looking for, Go Sunkuji. Because only his head was visible, Naruto could not tell much, except his appearance was that of a greedy and ruthless man, where the notion of mercy was alien to him. His steel-gray hair, cut just above his pitiless eyes, and to his mid-back, he also wore a mustache and chin beard connected to ensnare his mouth. On the poster was a description of what crimes he has committed, other than the theft of the Misogi tea set, which resulted in the deaths of the men guarding it. He is also wanted in connection to the brutal slaying of 4 people, a family of 3, and a local artisan, named Takichi, who stumbled upon the crime as it happened. Naruto walked a little ways down and found another poster. This one was of a man Naruto met while he still lived in Konoha. He had bluish-green hair and purple eyes, which Naruto knew firsthand, hid a cruel mind. He was wanted for the theft of an artifact, and the murder of a genin in the leaf, which was offering a 25,000 ryo reward for the return of Aoi Rokusho's head, and an additional year 5,000 for the artifact's return. By the 3, let me run into that asshole, someday, he swore fervently, but he's not part of this mission, so maybe once I'm done with my obligation to Ryo Zanpaku, I can keep my eyes peeled for him. I wonder what he took from Konoha. Naruto moved past the wall, and found a saloon, which seemed to be the hub of this particular community. He came through the batwing doors as bold as you please, and made it up to the tavern keeper, leaning his elbows on the bar. Who leaned down and asked, "Can I help you?" he asked. "Milk," Naruto ordered, without a care at how he looked, an affable grin plastered on his face. This caused the entire pub to crack up laughing, which caused Naruto to visibly sulk with his arms crossing over his chest. He had memorized the layout of the room as he approached the bar, which was like a long barrier at one end of the room, facing the door, with a smaller section at right angles, ending at the back wall. There were 4 sets of tables and chairs in the room. One closest to the front entrance was occupied by 4 gents, all hard cases from the looks of it. The only one to stand out was a big, fat, round guy. The others were forgettable. Another 2 were occupied by a single gentleman each, one a burly, bearded brute, with a club. The other seemed to be content to keep to himself. They both were, or at least appeared to do so. They both gave the impression of looking at the full table. More bounty hunters, but not after my prey, at least not yet. Naruto took out his wallet and laid a year 20.00 note down on the counter. Keep the change, he grinned. The bartender reached out to take the money. Naruto laid a heavy hand down over the paper money. The man looked at him in surprise. Say, you wouldn't know where a young artisan like myself could find employment around here, do you? He hardened his eyes to convey his true meaning. As he finished, doesn't have to be anything permanent, just something new and transient. My feet aren't nailed to the floor after all? The tavern owner knew what this kid was asking, and for him to ask indirectly meant this child was more shrewd than he looked, dangerous too. There's nothing around here like that. Naruto's hand increased the pressure he placed on the bartender's hand, causing the adult male to wince. Yet, but there are rumors of an outfit passing through this way, sometime tonight. Naruto, still keeping an affable expression on his face, tightened his grip on the older man's hand, scrutinizing his features, and finding no deception loosened his grip on the man. The bartender took his hand back and began to get Naruto's milk ready. Naruto was about to put his wallet away, when a presence approached him as he spoke to the bartender, grabbed his hand in what to some adults would be a vice-like grip. Naruto looked at him, more curious than anything. You shouldn't carry such a big bag of coins around, the fat guy began. It ain't safe. Why don't I do you a favor and hang on to it for you, he asked. not really hiding his true intentions. You wouldn't want one of these ruffians getting his paws on your dough, would you? Hey, hurry up, man, another of the men from the table called, getting impatient. These cards are getting cold. Fat guy, thinking he had the upper hand, looked away from Naruto, who just studied him like one would examine an obstacle in one's path, and determining the best way to remove said obstacle. I'm coming, Fat guy called back, just keep your pants on. You want some of this money or not? Naruto's affable grin returned to his face. This one had an edge to it though. No, you're right, he stated, sounding like he was the most agreeable person in the world. Fat guy turned back to Naruto, surprised at what he said. It's not safe for you to keep your hand on me, Naruto stated. Not when I can do this. Naruto quite easily broke the asshole's grip on him, which surprised Fat guy, which was more than the shinobi needed, because still maintaining contact, Naruto gripped the man's wrist, and using Fat guy's arm as a lever, while sweeping his legs out from under him, brought his head slamming face first into the countertop. The man was dazed, his nose and face were a bloody mess, but Naruto was not finished with him. Quickly putting his money pouch away, Naruto pulled the man back and into the middle of the room. Fat guy's face had a literal crease in the shape of the bar's edge, such was the force Naruto's maneuver imparted on the giant man, running from forehead to chin. Naruto began punching the man all over his torso. He was not just wailing on him though. His knowledge of anatomy, plus what he learned from Juan-sensei and Sasuma-sensei's clinic, taught him that the same places he would handle gently when healing could also be used to destroy someone when you wanted to hurt them. Naruto was not doing anything permanent to the big ox, but he would be down and out of commission for a few weeks. Healing, when done without medical chakra, could be just as painful as receiving the injuries themselves, because it took longer. What Naruto was doing was making an example of Fat guy, establishing a baseline of pain to anybody else who would see him as prey. When Naruto was finished, he stood back and Fat guy just stood there. Then, like the felling of a great oak, the big oaf keeled over to the side. The entire establishment was silent. The other three friends of Fat guy, and the bartender, just looked at the scene with slack-jawed wonder. They had just watched a kid take apart the biggest guy in town with ease. He turned to them and, threading fingers together, he cracked his knuckles as he stared at them with no emotion showing in his face, like a predator at his prey, and asked, in a monotone voice, "Who's next, boys?" The other three at the table scrambled to their feet, picking up their winnings from the table, and hurried out the door, without even looking at their fallen comrade. Naruto turned his back to his downed enemy, and walked back to the bartender. "Where's my milk, pub guy?" he wondered. The bartender jumped to get Naruto's drink, and delivered it to him with shaking hands. "Hey dude, no need to worry," Naruto stated, looking the man in his eyes. "I'm no psycho, nor am I a bully, I'm just a journeyman metalsmith looking for certain work." Naruto ducked his head humbly. "I just also have a side business, which you only saw a small portion of just now. If you treat me with any respect that I earn, in either trade, then we will not have issues. I don't like the taste of alcohol, so I doubt I'll ever order it in places like this," he added with a grin. "It tastes like I'm drinking out of a toilet whenever I drink booze. I also, despite my sideline, never go back on my word," he stated, getting deathly serious for once, "and I promise to always pay each kindness in kind, and visit each slight into the teeth of the miscreants. Remember that," he ordered, and the bartender nodded frantically, as Naruto picked up his milk and drank it down fast. He turned and walked toward the entrance. As he was passing the burly fellow at the table, he stated in a low voice, "The fellow on the floor is my gift to you, and a warning. I'm after specific work. He's not it. Stay out of my way and you won't have to join him in Dreamland, or meet the three. Understand?" Naruto did not wait for the man to answer him, before he walked out of the Batwing doors. Once outside, he noticed the wary glances coming from the other citizens of this place. Fat guy, it seemed, had a formidable reputation among the residents of this town. It seems that old prison meme is accurate. To get a measure of respect, one needs to walk into a new place and take on the biggest guy in the place and beat him. Maybe, Kyubi no Kitsune agreed, but that mentality only holds true for criminals, prisoners, or former prisoners, and I believe the citizens of Bosiki are a mixture of the first and third of those options. Naruto decided to take a stroll before finding a room for the night. He had earned enough money from his work as an apprentice of Moon-sama to allow for a few accommodations on this mission. Naruto had been walking for quite a while. He had picked up a tail, almost as soon as he had left the township. He had come to a lane with thick bushes on the sides, and a few trees in the distance. He had reached the place he wanted and decided this would be the perfect place for his confrontation with the one following him. "You can come out, you bastard," Naruto said, whirling around to confront his pursuer, who had not even bothered to conceal himself. The person that had followed Naruto was last seen on a wanted poster. He had blue-green hair, and cruel, violet eyes, and was 3 inches taller than the Uzumaki. Aoi Rokusho was looking at the red-headed, purple-eyed preteen, with a gleam in his eyes, and a leering smirk crossing his lips. "I have to say, the years have been good to you, demon," came Aoi's confident voice. "All these years on the run from your crimes, and you've decided to become a bounty hunter. Now that's rich," Aoi chuckled, "a murderer catching murderers. And you appear to have had some training too," he stated wistfully, "and maybe by a ninja as well, but not a very good one." Naruto remained expressionless. "It takes a murderer to catch a murderer, Rokusho-san," was all he said, as he drew his tanto. "What do you want with me?" he asked, I'm not wanted by the leaf, so there can be no purpose for you following me, Naruto reasoned. And as much pleasure as you always took to inflict pain on me while I lived there, you are too lazy to track me down just to harm me? Aoi just grinned. You may not be on the leaf's official wanted list, demon, but there was a sort of S-rank standing order, issued by the council, he said. It stated that if any Konohanin found you out in the world, they were to take you down as an enemy of the village. If I bring your head back, then the council will have to reinstate me as a ninja in their ranks. I tried getting on with Rain Village, but the leader of the village doesn't allow outsiders, especially traitors, to enter her ninja ranks. Even when I showed her what I could do, Aoi mumbled, the red-headed bitch. Probably wears the mask to hide how hideous she looks. Naruto's ears caught what Aoi said, or she knows damaged goods. When she sees them, he quipped, Ain is a small village, they probably wouldn't want to run afoul of Konoha, one of the 5 great villages. What about the Hokage? Surely he won't allow you to come back after murdering one of his ninja. Aoi's mouth twisted into a sneer. The Hokage has become little more than an ineffectual old man. He's just short of being a figurehead these days. The real power is in the council now. Then he sniggered, and looked at the redhead in front of him. Another reason I followed you out here is because I know you are on a mission to collect Gosenkuji's bounty, and I felt the need to kill 2 birds with 1 stone. I eliminate you as competition and get a chance to go back home, he grimaced, though I may have to endure some measure of abuse from Marino-san. It was his brother I killed after all. Aoi suddenly launched a flurry of shuriken, which Naruto dodged quite easily and flung a few of his own back at the Nukenin. But they did not come from the pouch at his waist, they came from within Naruto's arm, and were moving with pristine accuracy because they left a scratch on Aoi's cheek. Aoi hissed and Naruto quickly closed the distance. He brought his tanto into play, aiming a slash at Aoi's flank. There was a sudden puff of smoke and Naruto was just slicing into a log. Of course it was a substitution, one of the most basic skills of ninjutsu. Aoi appeared behind Naruto with a humming blade, made of condensed lightning, raised and was already coming down on Naruto. This is the end for you, demon, Aoi shouted, then snarled, go back to hell, where you belong. The Raijin no Ken sliced Naruto into 2 glowing pieces, and from the distance one heard 2 chunks hitting the ground heavily, followed by a wailing, as if all of creation shuddered as Naruto fell. It was night time in Stone Country, and a full moon night as well. All the residents of Boseki had long since sought out their beds. Yet, not all activity in Boseki had ceased, because walking through town on a pilgrimage was a monk, trailed closely by his 4 disciples. These monks, however, were not what they seemed, for out in front of them as plain as day, was a man with steel-gray hair, reaching to his mid-back, and carrying 2 long bundles over his shoulder. The 4 disciples kept their faces covered and seemed to be interchangeable. A shadow passed quickly over the light reflection from the moon, causing the lead monk to look up, but noted a cloud moving in the direction the shadow seemed to move. He turned back to the path in front of him, thinking no more on the subject. In a small alcove between 2 buildings, a man stood watching this band of monks move through the streets of Boseki, without stopping, and into a pass leading out of town. The man, wearing a shoddy, wide-brimmed hat, and a ratty cloak, had blue-green hair and purple eyes, and had a smirk twisting across his lips. He waited for the group of monks to pass his position, before following them at a discreet distance. The pass was a ravine with walls higher than the ones entering Boseki. Looking down, one would notice that the lead monk had shifted his position to be in the center, and his subordinates were in a 2x2 formation of protection. The cloaked man watched and followed them, his serious expression, that of a professional devising strategy to trap his target. The monks rounded a bend, as the man on the ground lost sight of them and hurried after. He rounded the turn after them, but found himself coming face to face with the 4 henchmen, standing silently in Aoi's path. Aoi Rokusho smiled in resolve. I'm hunting bigger game, but I don't see him. Quiet, came another voice to Aoi's side, you opportunistic jackal, and Gosenkuji jumped down from his perch, high upon the ridge wall. I was wondering when you would make your move, Nail-san. Aoi's lips had a smile on them, as if he knew something his prey did not. Unfortunately, I have an important task that needs attending to, Gosenkuji answered. Time is money, so let's kill you as cheaply as possible. Thus saying, the nail reached into his front pouch and pulled out a handful of his namesake, and tossed them high into the air. They came down like rain from the sky, landing point first in the ground. Then they drove themselves into the earth and disappeared. As this happened, Gosenkuji made a hand sign, saying, Ninja art, torpedo nail. Aoi drew a metallic blade from his cloak. It was a dual-colored blade. The edge was a silver hue, while the backside was a bluish-green color, the same shade as his hair. Gosenkuji, it's over. Aoi took a step to charge his foe, when a nail drove itself up and through his sandaled foot. Aoi appeared to grunt in pain, as his other foot came down, and another nail drove into that foot. The 4 henchmen took this as their cue to go on the offensive and charged toward the hapless Nukenin. Gosenkuji stood at the side of the brawl, and waited for the inevitable conclusion, when from above he heard what could only be described as a high-pitched, whistling sound. He looked up and in the direction of the sound, which as it got louder was sounding more and more like a shriek from hell, and his eyes had to have been playing tricks on him, because he saw what he could only describe as an avenging angel, carrying a lightning bolt in his hands. The nail still had the presence of mind to dodge out of the way, but he still got clipped by the front edge of the wing, slicing into his side. The keen edge of those wings made a katana look like a dull, rusty, axe blade. They cut Gosunkuji so quickly. His mind did not have time to register the pain until the entity was gone. The nail looked at his men, and found they had their hands full, dealing with a red-haired, violet-eyed youth. There was no trace of the other man, leading Gosunkuji to the conclusion that he was a clone using a henge, who did not seem inconvenienced by the nails in his feet at all. Gosunkuji looked up as the being in the sky reached the apex of its climb, which silhouetted it perfectly in the full moon. The most unique feature the nail could distinguish about the wings were that they seemed more bat-like than bird, with a natural curvature after reaching the middle of the wing, and tapering down to the tip. The wings were located at the center of gravity along the back, and rippled out along the expanse, with concave sections on the trailing edge. In all, the creature had a 25-foot wingspan, and a unique tail design with 2 sets of fins. One pair of fins connected the body of the creature to the tail, used for fine control during flight. The last pair of fins ended at the tip of the tail, which was rather flexible as the creature tucked it into its body. As it keeled over in midair, the fins in the tail were obviously used for split-second turns, as it dove directly for Gosunkuji's position. Gosunkuji was running as fast as he could, zigzagging erratically to prevent the fiend above from targeting him. The nail, who had struck fear into the hearts of many with his deeds, was himself knowing fear he had not felt since he was a small, and still innocent boy. The creature behind him was silent now, deathly so. Gosunkuji chanced a look behind him, and sure enough the creature was hot on his heels. Gosunkuji may have been afraid, but he would not go down without a fight, so he jumped and whirled around, while moving through some hand signs, and shouted, "Ninja art, nail hail," before cupping his thumb and index finger around his mouth, and blowing, from out of his mouth a storm of small penny nails shot. The creature did not even try to dodge his assault. It did not need to, because as the nail barrage struck it, the metallic nails were absorbed into it, and seemed to add strength to the wings themselves, which was when the nail noticed something truly odd about the wings and tail of the creature. They were all made of metal. In his panic, he had not noticed the shine from the moonlight, reflecting off the blade-like wings. Gosunkuji, however, should have been looking where he was going, because out of the ground right in front of his feet sprang a metallic net. The net ensnared his feet, pitching him over for a face plant into the ravine floor. The creature swooped in and came in for a landing, flaring its wings to come to a complete stop before touching down as gracefully as any bird the nail has ever seen. Finally, Gosunkuji got a good look at its face. The head, with its narrow pointed snout and long ears, looked like that of a fox. The arms were encased in overlapping metallic bands, lending the strength of many, while remaining flexible enough not to hinder range of motion, and they ended with very human-like hands, which had 5 fingers ending in cruel, metallic talons. One hand held the sword, which emitted a lightning bolt from the hilt, and seemed to hum ominously. There was a small spike of chakra, and the metal seemed to retreat into the body of a youth, no older than 12 from the looks of it, with ginger hair, purple eyes, and whisker marks running down the cheeks of his face. The humming blade, now that Gosunkuji got a good look at it, was familiar to him, at least from the descriptions he had heard about it. The Raijin no Ken, sword of the thunder god, the Nidame's blade. Gosunkuji returned his attention to the hand holding the blade, looked into the young man's eyes, and saw his death. "No, please, have mercy on me, I'll give you anything," the coward pleaded with the boy, hoping youth still allowed him the naivete to spare his enemies. "It did not." "Spare you?" the young ninja scoffed. "Have mercy? I wonder how many of your victims begged you for the very same thing you're begging me for now?" "One who showed no compassion for others," Naruto stated as he raised his blade, "will never know such a thing at my hands. Perhaps Sanbu no Hashira, 3 pillars, will show you mercy when they reincarnate you as a worm." At that, Naruto brought the thunder blade down. The cut was clean and precise. The only mercy Naruto would grant to this man was a quick death. Flashback. Naruto had been walking for quite a while. He had picked up a tail almost as soon as he had left the township. He had come to a lane with thick bushes on the sides, and a few trees in the distance. He had reached the place he wanted and decided this would be the perfect place for his confrontation with the one following him. "You can come out, you bastard," Naruto said, whirling around to confront his pursuer, who had not even bothered to conceal himself. The person that had followed Naruto was last seen on a wanted poster. He had blue-green hair, and cruel, violet eyes, and was 3 inches taller than the Uzumaki. Aoi Rokusho was looking at the red-headed, purple-eyed preteen, with a gleam in his eyes, and a leering smirk crossing his lips. "I have to say, the years have been good to you, demon," came Aoi's confident voice. "All these years on the run from your crimes, and you've decided to become a bounty hunter. Now that's rich." Aoi chuckled. "A murderer catching murderers. And you appeared to have had some training too," he stated wistfully, "and maybe by a ninja as well, but not a very good one." Naruto remained expressionless. "It takes a murderer to catch a murderer, Rokusho-san," was all he said, as he drew his tanto. "What do you want with me?" he asked. "I'm not wanted by the leaf, so there can be no purpose for you following me," Naruto reasoned. "And as much pleasure as you always took to inflict pain on me while I lived there, you are too lazy to track me down just to harm me?" Aoi just grinned. "You may not be on the leaf's official wanted list, demon, But there was a sort of S-rank standing order, issued by the council, he said. It stated that if any Konohanin found you out in the world, they were to take you down as an enemy of the village. If I bring your head back, then the council will have to reinstate me as a ninja in their ranks. I tried getting on with Rain Village, but the leader of the village doesn't allow outsiders, especially traitors, to enter her ninja ranks. Even when I showed her what I could do, Aoi mumbled, the red-headed bitch. Probably wears the mask to hide how hideous she looks. Naruto's ears caught what Aoi said, or she knows damaged goods, when she sees them, he quipped. Ain is a small village, they probably wouldn't want to run afoul of Konoha, one of the 5 great villages. What about the Hokage? Surely he won't allow you to come back after murdering one of his ninja. Aoi's mouth twisted into a sneer. The Hokage has become little more than an ineffectual old man. He's just short of being a figurehead these days. The real power is in the council now. Then he sniggered, and looked at the redhead in front of him. Another reason I followed you out here is because I know you are on a mission to collect Gosankuji's bounty, and I felt the need to kill 2 birds with 1 stone. I eliminate you as competition and get a chance to go back home, he grimaced, though I may have to endure some measure of abuse from Marino-san. It was his brother I killed after all. Aoi suddenly launched a flurry of shuriken, which Naruto dodged quite easily and flung a few of his own back at the Nukenin. But they did not come from the pouch at his waist, they came from within Naruto's arm, and were moving with pristine accuracy because they left a scratch on Aoi's cheek. Aoi hissed and Naruto quickly closed the distance. He brought his tanto into play, aiming a slash at Aoi's flank. There was a sudden puff of smoke and Naruto was just slicing into a log. Of course it was a substitution, one of the most basic skills of ninjutsu. Aoi appeared behind Naruto, with a humming blade made of condensed lightning, raised and already coming down on Naruto. This is the end for you, demon, Aoi shouted, then snarled, go back to hell, where you belong. The Raijin no Ken sliced Naruto into 2 glowing pieces, and from the distance one heard 2 chunks hitting the ground heavily. Before Aoi could even begin to celebrate his victory, several tentacles of metal erupted from the ground, and tried wrapping themselves around his legs. The blade in his hands, however, lashed out as fast as a viper's tongue flicked, severing the tentacles before they could tighten. Did you really think you could get me? With the same techniques you used on the hapless villagers you murdered all those years ago, demon, Aoi gloated. He looked down, noticing the red glow along the bisected halves of the Naruto he had slain. You seem to have learned a few things since leaving the village, demon, the current wielder of the Thunder God's blade told him. A metal bunshin is something I've never seen before. There was a rustling in the brush, as more Naruto stood and looked at the remains of the clone. And tentacles, interesting, they all said at once. They acted as if nothing was wrong at all. The only thing they seemed surprised by was the demise of the clone and the subsidence of the tentacles, back into the earth. Aoi, thinking he had the advantage, decided to gloat some more. What did you expect? This is the famed Raijin no Ken. With this I'm nigh invincible. I could probably take on even the legendary 3 Sannin. Together, Rokusho then laughed. Wouldn't it be fitting for the blade that once belonged to Tobirama Senju to be used to end the line of Senju, once and for all? And he just laughed an evil grin at his thought. Will you be quiet, Rokusho-san? And Naruto said irritably, I'm trying to think here, he mused to himself. And Aoi was confused. Why wasn't the demon cowering in fear? Naruto looked at Aoi's expression, and smiled his own evil grin, and chuckled quietly, which sent shivers down the missing Nin's spine. You're far from invincible with that toy of yours. It's just Raiden Jutsu concentrated into blade form. The same weaknesses against wind still apply. As he spoke, Naruto flashed through hand signs in a blur, ending in hair, wind blade barrage, modified. All of a sudden a whirling dervish swept up around Aoi, and it was like he was inside a blender, as 1,000 knives ripped into his flesh, causing the former leaf ninja to scream in pain and flail about him with the thunder sword. It was to no avail, however, as the power of Futonjutsu, even though it was the same level as the blade, due to chakra expenditure, could not be stopped by the Raijin no Ken. Aoi just stood there as the ninjutsu ran its course. He was bleeding from several cuts all along his body, but none of them were fatal. For your information, another Naruto began, I wasn't saying use of the blade was interesting, Aoi-san. I was just surprised by the results of your cut, Naruto explained. I've never before found anything that could counteract my meta release techniques. They're a bloodline select, combining earth, fire, and wind chakra, he explained. It's quite fascinating, because the metal isn't just dead matter. It seems to actually come alive when I manipulate it. The molecules seem to configure into the shape of proteins, which causes them to act like living tissue. The sensations pass back to me, and I can manipulate the metal as easily as I move my own body. The clones share my consciousness, and anything they learn passes back to me when I return them back to the earth. When you killed that clone at your feet, everything he learned while he was alive passed back to me. I didn't know that was possible, because I've never found any method capable of destroying them. It must be the Raiden Jutsu overpowering the earth elemental chakra, Naruto hypothesized. I wonder what would happen if someone used a water release jutsu on them? I'll have to get Ma-sensei to hit one of my clones with a jutsu when I return home. Aoi was confused. Why are you telling me this, demon? He asked irritably. I am your enemy, and you're telling me something that I can use to destroy you. He said that just as his vision started to swim, and he began to lurch forward. He was feeling dizzy. The Naruto's grins became truly evil. You lost this battle in our very first exchange, Aoi-san, they informed the other ninja. Did you think I miss you on purpose? The Narutos brushed their own cheeks with their fingers, and though his vision was fading, Aoi mimicked the Jinchuriki's action, coming away with the stain of blood on his fingers, and realizing what his enemy meant, poison. I am feeling merciful toward you, Aoi-san. You gave me some information about myself I didn't know, so I'm going to give you a quick death. Naruto waved his arm, and Aoi saw 3 gleams flashing in the moonlight, and realized what they were, the shuriken he had thrown at Naruto in their first exchange. The throwing stars should have lost momentum long before now. That's one of my Kekkei Genkai, Aoi-san. And Naruto answered his unspoken question, magnet release, like the Shodan Kazakage. I was keeping them in reserve, if my poison didn't work. I wasn't going to kill you, I was going to pack you into a storage scroll, and mail you to Ibiki-san, the head of TI. I think he would have enjoyed his work, once he had you in his tender mercies. But I'm thanking you for providing me with valuable information on my metal release, by giving you the quick death he would have you begging for murdering his brother. Despite his weakened condition, Aoi was still on his feet when the shuriken he threw at Naruto to distract him, while Aoi set up his kawarimi to get behind the demon, buzzed through his body. All 3 were moving faster than sound. At those speeds, the bones of the body were just a suggestion. One went through the skull like it was not there, and the force cleaved the brain in half. The other 2 entered the body at neck level, which cleanly severed the head from the neck. He was dead in seconds and felt no pain as he passed to the 3. Naruto searched Aoi's body for anything useful, sealed his head away, and picked up the Nidame's blade. I'll give this back to Tsunade-san when I get back. It is her family treasure after all, and the leaf obviously cannot be trusted to keep it safe. Then looking down at the body, sighed, I might as well perform a Hunter-Nin ritual. There's no telling how many secrets his body has, any one of them could bring down Konoha, and as long as my one precious person lives there, its strength is a vested interest, he rationalized. Going through more hand seals, finishing with Tiger, Katan Jutsu, Keiso, fire release technique, cremation. There was a short intense burst of flame over the remains of Aoi Rokusho, and when they subsided, he was nothing but a pile of ashes blowing in the wind. Flashback end. Gosonkuji's head, of course, was sealed away into a sealing scroll. He picked up the long bundles, opening them both. Inside were 2 swords. One was just your generic katana, not very special, it would fetch a good price from a dealer. The other, however, was a unique blade forged by a solid craftsman. It looked like a standard katana, but it was in the details where one saw the finishing touches. The blade started from the hilt as wide as a normal blade, but tapered along the edge subtly. But the grip was truly unique. It was a broad, thick, wooden club, perfect for clubbing someone over the head. As Naruto held the blade, images rose in his mind of the man who forged this blade. He was a swordsmith, and if he had lived, still may not have been world-renowned, but he was good at his craft. He picked up images of the smith's time while forging the blade, and the events that led to Takechi's death at the hands of Gosonkuji. The sword thanked Naruto for getting justice for its forger, and now the last of Takechi's soul that still clung to the blade could rest in peace. Naruto smiled and said in a whisper, Rest, Takechi-san, let the 3 take you to where you are most needed. I'll keep this masterpiece of yours with me, as a companion on my journey. I like the option you provided to knock someone out or take their life. Naruto allowed a tear to fall from his eyes. Naruto also took Gosonkuji's pouch and found scrolls that contained his nail techniques. Thanks, Nail. These jutsu will pair well with my metal release, he said to the man. He went through a couple of hand seals, and said solemn burial. The criminal was interred in a proper grave, and a modest tombstone was raised at the head of the grave. There was an inscription chiseled into it, which read, Here lies Gosonkuji, the nail, the thief, the murderer. He died begging for mercy and received none. Time to go home, Kit, came Kyubi's voice. Absolutely, my friend, Naruto said. Naruto was too tired to walk back to Ryozanpaku, so he decided to use his alternative means of travel. Naruto deployed his wings again and took off, soaring through the sky. Now normally, Naruto would be too heavy to fly the way he does, and when he first devised this method about 2 years ago, he despaired of ever making it work. When he realized, he has been making things fly for a while now. With his magnet release, he has been very good at making metal objects fly. So, after finding a configuration that would hold him aloft, he learned to coat his entire form with electromagnetic energy, which gave him a buoyancy within the atmosphere, and allowed him to move through the air with ease. He still had to perfect his flying, and the wings still had to comply with the aerodynamic principles of flight, but with his clones, minus a few injuries, and nearly drowning in the river, he became as natural at flight as any bird in nature. It also helped that he could feel the air as it passed over and under his wings, which allowed him to make the minuscule changes in pitch and yaw that allowed him to maneuver with so much precision. The Kinzoku no Bunshin saw his boss taking off, and head in the direction of his home for the last 6 years and smiled, before looking at the minions of their prey. These men had fought valiantly to protect their employer. They were honorable shinobi. Time to see if they were smart enough to retreat when given the chance, as all ninja must learn. Only samurai would give their lives for a cause. Ninja could be more flexible. Alright boys, my boss has just left, which means your boss is dead, or captured, and you won't be getting paid. So do you wish to continue fighting me? The metal clone's left hand morphed into a chain with a depleted uranium weight attached, and his right hand morphed into a chain with a sickle on the end. Keep in mind, now that I'm no longer just here to distract you, I can finally cut loose, he said, with a smile that dared them to make a move. The men looked at the one they thought was a normal man, who had been holding them at bay easily. What could he do when all restraints were lifted, and decided to meet the people in town, really quickly? The clone smirked, then turned to look at the reader, and took a stage bow to the fourth wall. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, good night, before liquefying back into the ground from whence it was formed. The gambling mission. Naruto and Tsunade were now traveling together. They had been on the road for nearly a full year now. He had only been home from his mission to Stone for a few days, when he was called before the elder of Ryo and Tsunade Senju. She had been extremely grateful to Naruto for returning the Thunder Sword and seemed disturbed with what he had told her about what Konoha had become, at least according to Aoi. Hayato-sama addressed him. Naruto, good job again. On the swift resolution of your very first mission as a shinobi, he commended Naruto. You showed great maturity in your battles with Gosunkuji-san, and the unexpected gain of the bounty on Rokusho-san's head. You have been credited the 20% for the mission but were given the full amount for the bounty, minus the amount for the Blade of the Night Aim. Thank you, Hayato-sama. Naruto nodded in acknowledgement. I also thank you again for returning Raijin no Ken to its rightful owner, Tsunade added. She had, unbeknownst to the redhead, given it as a gift to Hayato, the son of Tobarama Senju, who now kept it in a shrine he kept in his apartment on the school grounds. A memento of his father, he would offer it to Mio, and if she did not want it, give it to Naruto, once he was deemed ready to know about his Namake's heritage. You're welcome, Naruto shrugged. It seemed like the right thing to do. You are the last Senju, and it's yours by rights. Tsunade nodded her thanks again, and Hayato decided to come to the point of this meeting. Naruto, the mission we sent you on to Ishii no Kuni was a prep mission for another mission we will be sending you on, which should take the rest of this year and more to complete. It is a mission that we feel you alone could complete, because of your exceptional luck at cards and dice and other types of casino gambling games. He indicated the woman in his office. This is being commissioned as a familial favor from Tsunade Toko, my cousin. That revelation certainly took the 12-year-old by surprise, but such was his training, that he only allowed one of his eyes to quirk out of surprise. Hayato took a measure of pride at what the training of Ryo could produce, before Naruto asked, Cousin, so would that make you a Senju, and for that matter would that be the same for the fourth Hokage? No, while we are related by blood, we've chosen to keep the Namake's name, to protect us from exploitation by the Leaf. Hayato explained as much as he dared. Mine and Minato's mother, my sister's father was Senju Tobarama. He was shrewd enough, as he watched his brother's family die out, except Tsunade here, to keep us away from Konoha politics. Before you ask, she did give me my father's blade which you recovered, Hayato stated with a smile of gratitude. I will see if Mio wants it, when the time is right. Naruto nodded his understanding. But my family history is beside the reason you are here. My cousin has run into a bit of financial adversity, because of her life of debauchery, and unfortunately Ryo is not in a position to bail her out directly. We are still a young business venture after all. I'm just a degenerate gambler, and a drunk. Don't make me out to be free with my body. Tsunade growled in warning to her cousin. I am a carouser, not a slut. My apologies, Tsunade carouser, Hayato offered with a teasing gleam in his eyes. She just turned her nose up, crossed her arms over her chest, and sniffed indignantly. It was only thanks to Naruto's discipline as a ninja that kept him from cracking up laughing. Their behavior toward each other just screams family bond. He snickered to his tenant, who just shrugged, human behavior meaning very little to it. Hayato returned to business. What we've decided is that you'll go on a bit of a gambling trip with her, to all of the places she owes money. You'll gamble as much as you feel like, until you equal or exceed however much she owes that establishment, but instead of collecting your winnings, except for your entrance fee, you'll waive them if they forgive Tsunade her debts with them. And what if I don't win? Whose money will be forfeited if I cannot win? Naruto asked, starting to get angry. That's the reason we had you go on that mission to collect Gosunkuji's bounty. Hayato smiled. The usual 80% fee we collected will be used as a stake to fund the mission. Success or failure is not predicated upon winning or losing these games, the blonde man added. This is a familial favor. If you lose the stake, then nothing changes financially for anybody. You'll still have the year 30,000 you earned from the mission. Ryo gives up nothing it wasn't planning to keep anyway, and Tsunade-chan is still in major debt. Very well, what do I get out of it? Naruto asked. Well, if you stay out for the rest of the year, then your obligation to Ryo is fulfilled. You're free and clear, Hayato explained. You'll have to return here to receive your official Ronin license, of course. Then you may go wherever the wind takes you, though I do hope you keep in touch as a friend. As for what you'll get from me, Naruto-san, Tsunade answered, I have agreed to train you as my apprentice, in shinobi work and as a medical ninja. It'll be something besides the standard ninja work you can offer your clients as you go forward. It'll be an extra source of income at the very least. In addition to your journeyman training as a metalsmith, there is never a shortage of the ill and injured, Naruto. What do you say? Tsunade asked, with a seductive grin as she saw his eye twitch. Do you accept the mission? Naruto closed his eyes and calmed himself, and considered the offer. Of course accepting the mission was never in doubt. his contract with Ryozanpaku prevented that. But to be trained by one of the 3 legendary Sannin, and top Ishanin in the world was a dream come true for him. But he had to be mature as he accepted. A true ninja does not let their emotions get the better of them. I accept, of course. And I'll stay with you for as long as it takes to clear up your debts. No matter how long it takes. She grinned brightly as he accepted the mission. He was not finished though. But you cannot do any more gambling, for as long as I'm with you. You pick up so much as a pair of dice, or a card for anything other than just for fun, and no stakes, then we stop. And you still continue to train me for as long as I feel like being your student. Naruto held out his hand for her to shake. Do we have an accord, Tsunade-san? Tsunade had a light smile on her face as she looked at him, then raised her hand and grasped his. Yes, and I agree to your terms, then reached for the necklace around her neck, and pulled it out of her bodice. And to make sure I keep my bargain, I offer this necklace. It belonged to the Shodai, my grandfather. If I break our deal, I will not only allow you to remain with me as long as you wish, I will give you this necklace to do with as you see fit. It's worth quite a lot. Intrinsically and subjectively, some could say it's worth as much as 10 villages. To me it's priceless. I mean, if I wanted to, I could have sold this to a collector and paid off all my debts with interest and have enough left over to buy a substantial plot of land and live comfortably for the rest of my days. But it's yours if I break my word and gamble before you're finished getting me squared away financially. Those are my stakes, by the 3, Tsunade vowed solemnly. It has been almost a year since that time, and now, Naruto and Tsunade were on their way back to Ryozanpaku, so he can turn in this mission. In the time they have traveled together, the boy and the older woman have become incredibly close. For the first time in his life, Naruto had a best friend, Tsunade Senju. He knew everything about her. He had learned about her brother, Nawaki, and fiancé, Dan Kato. She had told him about Dan's niece, Shizun, and where she had been for the year. He not only knew that her outward appearance was just a facade, but so was her old prunish shell too. It seems that the Uzumaki and Senju genes created a peculiar mix within her. She has, not only, gained the youthful vitality of the Senju clan, she also gained the longevity, the lifespan if you will of the Uzumaki clan, which she had educated Naruto all about. They even took side trips to Uzushio to visit their ancestral home. Tsunade does not age like most people in the world. She ages 5 times as slow as most living things in the world. What that meant, while chronologically Tsunade may have been in her mid-50s, physically and mentally in terms of brain health, she had just reached her mid-teens. She had the maturity and life experiences of an elder. She believed she could very well live to see her 500th birthday. In truth, it was not just the genes in her body that she had, but the chakra given to Ajura Otsutsuki by his father, Hagoromo, the sage of 6 paths, who charged him with making sure the Rinnegan could never again be awakened. To that end, Ajura was the founder of 2 clans, the Senju, to which he bequeathed the yin half of the 6 paths chakra, and the Uzumaki whom he gave the yang half, thinking they would never be brought together again. She wore the modified henge for vanity's sake, and the shell of an aged woman, to keep the likes of Jiraiya and Huan from creeping on her. Only her sensei, Sarutobi Hiruzen, knew what she truly looked like, and now so does Naruto, because at times while they traveled, and when he had gained her complete trust as a friend, she traveled without either guise but as her true self. Not even Shizun had seen her without her shells. The first time she brought it down, the only thing he could say, when he saw her physical beauty was, "Wow." This actually caused her to blush. Such was how close she had come to this young man, that she dropped her ninja bearing when he was around and acted like a girl. That's when they discovered something weird about Naruto. She went to give him a hug in her true form, something she had not done since then, but as she made contact with him, something happened. Naruto felt something within him awaken, something neither of them were expecting. Tsunade was expecting the normal reaction a male would achieve when gaining physical contact with an attractive female. Naruto was at that age after all, but while that did occur, that was not all. While they did not know it at the time, at least not immediately, they discovered that Naruto's metal sense when making significant contact with a similar genetic relative awakened the dormant, or recessive genes of his DNA. In Tsunade's case, the genes she got from her Uzumaki and Senju heritage awakened in Naruto, also, though he did not know it, the product of the Uzumaki and the Senju clans. While hugging Tsunade, Naruto came alive, truly alive for the first time in his life, and he felt elated. Naruto laughed, but it was the kitsune inside him. After checking out what happened, that told him, including the facts about the chakra, everything, except it only told him it was from the founder of both clans, not the name of the founder. Naruto, nor Tsunade, were ready for that information yet. He was grateful, because he still loved Ayame, and he would not even think of letting her go at the moment. Naruto told Tsunade what had happened, relaying to her everything the fox told him. He was astonished that he was related so closely to Tsunade, and he wondered which side of his family it came from. That's when she told him she knew, but he had to wait for the full story, and it was not her place to tell him about his origins. So, instead of lying to him like some others, she was like the Kyuubi. She knew where he was from, but came right out and refused to tell him, which earned her a permanent place of trust in his heart. Their training together could not be any tougher on Naruto, and he thought Ryozanpaku was tough on him. But while they were tough on him and did not go easy on him by any stretch of the imagination, at least when compared to his other classmates, Tsunade's training took what he learned from Ryozanpaku and amplified it by 100%, and she was a tireless taskmaster too. She never let him rest, until he reached the pinnacle of perfection, with everything she had to teach him. She ran him like a drill sergeant in an ANBU boot camp, stressing him in not only the body, but the mind as well. There were times, especially at first, despite their burgeoning friendship, when he seriously thought about murdering her. However, as time went by, he saw that he began to improve. Everything he was good at when he graduated from Ryozanpaku, he became great at, and the things he needed to work on before, he became perfect at now. His chakra control became equivalent to an elite ANBU, very close to Tsunade's own. In fact, his taijutsu she refined to be even better than before he left Ryozanpaku. Whether his shinobi skills or his training in medicine, Tsunade trained him thoroughly in everything she knew. She was even more of a slave driver about his medical chakra than about his ninja skills, taking him to task over even the smallest of mistakes. He learned so much from this woman, and together they learned his metal release, allowed him to capture the platelets of the blood and cause them to coagulate faster at injury points. He could accelerate bone growth in a patient, healing broken bones in half the time it took nature to do it, and if he combined this method with medical chakra, it healed these same injuries even faster. Naruto could use magnet release to see inside patients and help diagnose problems that even medical chakra could not detect. She taught him about medicines, poisons, and other drugs and their effects on the body, even some that affected the chakra coils. By the time the year-long mission was coming to an end, Naruto was a qualified medical ninja, though his skill level only allowed him to stabilize a patient and get them ready for transport to a medical facility. Professionally, he was equal in skill to a civilian registered nurse, not yet doctor caliber, and certainly not ready to perform surgery. The focus of this mission was a complete success, with many surprises throughout the journey. The first month Naruto followed the plan laid out for him by Ryozanpaku. He entered the casinos and gambling parlors, played until he won twice as much as Tsunade owed to the place, then made a deal to forgive her debts to the place, instead of collecting his full winnings. He made sure to collect a receipt of the forfeiture, so they could not double-cross him and hold her debt to them over her head. This plan held for most of the gambling dens he attended, though not for all of them. You see, there were some who took it as a source of pride that they had one of the legendary three by the nose, and refused to budge on that subject. That was when Naruto decided to alter the plan slightly. He stopped being nice guy-san. Instead of playing until he had double Tsunade's debts, he played until the place nearly went bankrupt. Millions of ryo could have been his for the taking, enough to live in the lap of luxury for the rest of his, now, very long life. Naruto, however, had his honor as a ninja, and ninjas stayed faithful to the parameters of the missions they were given. He was getting his payment in training. The bonus was coming from making a lasting friendship with Tsunade. When a casino, gambling parlor, or gambling den reached the point of bankruptcy, they begged with their heads bowed to the floor for him to stop, and only once they agreed to forgive Tsunade's debt, and he took double the amount he began playing with, did he forfeit his winnings. Hey, he was honorable, he was not stupid, he still collected some profit. He would even share his winnings with Ryozanpaku. The 80-20% split was a part of his contract with them, of course. Plus, they were like a family to him. He wanted to see them succeed. There were some who tried to use force to evict him, or get him to stop playing, but that quickly came to an end when the two ninja broke their bouncers, thugs, and henchmen. They never killed anybody. At least during those first few months, he and Tsunade even took time to heal them back to reasonable health, for a fee of course, before departing to the next destination. For 10 months, Naruto's Get Tsunade Out of Debt mission went like that until at one of Tsunade's highest debtors he found something infuriating. They were cheating. He did not know if they had been this way when Tsunade passed through here on a gambling binge, but from the amount she owed them, 7 figures, he very much suspected they were. The dice were weighted, the balls were metallic and magnetized. It was run by a man named Som, a greasy and unkempt man who seemed to take a sadistic pleasure in ruining people's lives. Naruto and Tsunade entered the place, and they already had an uneasy feeling. The last time Tsunade had entered this place was last year, on the day of Nawaki's birthday. Needless to say, she had been as drunk as a daimyo, and did not notice the feel of the place. From the looks of things, it was just like any other of the same type of establishment they had been to 100 times, but they could feel the corruption of the place like a sixth sense. Approaching them in a dark blue, long gown with wide sleeves, that allowed his arms to be tucked inside, was a balding, old man. What hair he had fell to be even with his shoulder blades. His bald pate had liver spots, and his eyes looked like a pair of egg yolks that have been fried in grease. He was obviously a professional drinker. The rest of him reminded Naruto of a rat, with his pointed nose, wide ears and stooped posture. He seemed to wring his hands and look around himself in a furtive manner, always wary of an attack it seemed. The old man came close to the pair at the entrance, his eyes glittering with greed, and an avaricious grin on his face. Well, Tsunade-san, welcome back to my establishment, the man greeted. Have you come to pay back your debts to me? Tsunade returned his grin with a false one of her own. Not today, Som-san, she replied, then laid an affectionate hand upon Naruto's shoulder. I have merely come to introduce my latest apprentice to the wonders of gaming and thought. This would be a good place to begin. What do you think of that? Tsunade asked. Song's grin became positively predatory, and if anything the wringing of his hands became more pronounced. Why yes, my place would be as good a place to start as any. I dare say this would be a good lesson at the very least. The old man put a grandfatherly arm around Naruto's shoulders, who had to suppress the urge to shudder and gag, in that order. The shudder was for being so close to a man of vile corruption, the gag was for being within the miasma of Song's stench. It was not merely his eyes that reminded Naruto of eggs. Song showed Naruto to a small stakes craps table, and if it were not for his fox senses, Naruto may have missed the discreet nod he gave to the dealer, who smiled. Naruto put a modest sum of 30 ryo down as his first bet for the evening. The dice were passed to the red-haired boy, who rolled them in his hand for a few seconds before tossing them and winning, which was something he expected. But as he looked over at Song and the dealer, he saw that they also expected him to win. Naruto got the dice back and examined them with his senses, and what he felt angered him immensely. He looked over at Tsunade conversing with Song, though she kept at least 3 feet of space between them. Song was watching the table like a hawk, not paying Naruto any attention, who sent a discreet hand sign to Tsunade signaling that he was calling an audible to the usual events of the night. The only thing she could do was narrow her eyes, and trust in Naruto's instincts. Let it ride, Naruto declared, then looking over at Song and said to placate his suspicion, Tsunade-sama has been teaching me the lingo, and even taught me the basics of all the games in here. He turned back and got the dice again and rolled, winning again. He did this 2 more times before Song gave another discreet nod to his employee. This time when Naruto got the dice, they felt different, as if their balance had shifted. Time to go for the throat, Kit, Kyubi advised. That it is, Kyubi no Kitsune, he answered back. Time to take this place down. These were the dice designed to make him lose. Song's mistake was using lead, and having dice made of bone. Now normally, Naruto's honor prevented him from using his powers in these games. Games should be fair, and cheating like that was just wrong in his book. Naruto made his roll, and used a little Kinzakuton chakra to balance the dice and make them honest, and as he cast them into fate, the same thing happened that happened every time he played games of chance. He won. Song and the table manager's face was priceless. They had obviously expected a different outcome. Tsunade was starting to suspect the same thing Naruto discovered a few minutes ago. Something wrong, Song-san? She asked, feigning concern. He caught himself, and turned to face the kunoichi of the Sannin. His grin this time was wan. No, nothing's wrong. And winced as Naruto won again. Replied some more but in a pained-sounding voice. Everything is quite alright. As Naruto won again, Song hurried over to the table, grabbed the dice from the dealer's hand, and turning an accusatory glare at Naruto asked brusquely, Where did you get these dice, boy? Naruto looked confused. These are the dice your dealer gave me. Why, did he give me cheater dice? He turned an accusatory glare on the dealer. Song looked hard at his employee, who glared right back, daring the old man to say something. He knew the only reason his men worked for him was the money they earned here. It certainly was not because he was an easy boss to work for, that was for sure. The old man thrust the dice back into his dealer's hand and stalked off, and Naruto continued to play. He never lost, not once. He cleaned out that first table, and moved to the next table, another low-stakes craps table. Naruto went through craps, roulette, demagnetizing the wheel, blackjack and slots, were perhaps the only honest games in the joint, because it's hard to rig a shoe, and the machines were guaranteed tamper-proof by the manufacturers themselves. By the time 6 hours rolled around, he had racked up a cool $1,000,000, and he was just getting started. Song's place teetered toward bankruptcy. The longer Naruto remained playing, at the moment Naruto was on another craps table, the highest-rated table in the joint, and there was no limit at this table. Naruto had attracted attention from several people and had people trailing in his wake like Remora, trailing a great white shark. While normally he did not like people doing that, his goal tonight was not just to remove Tsunade's debts, it was to put Song out of business. He invited the others to place their bets with him, because the higher their chips grew, the easier it would be to destroy Song. The aged proprietor was looking ill, the longer Naruto played, and Tsunade remained beside him to make sure he did not try anything. He did try things though. Song had lived too long to have everything he worked for overthrown by some punk kid. Song started out subtly. He had a complimentary beverage with an extra ingredient, sent to Naruto's table, which Naruto sent back because he did not like the taste of alcohol. So, he sent a non-alcoholic drink to him instead. Naruto drank it without thought and nothing happened. The citizens of the Leaf had tried more than once to kill him, using various means, and poison was one of them. The Kyubi, plus his knowledge and use of his bloodstream, allowed him to not only purge any toxins entering his body, but immunize himself against them in the future. He thought about holding Tsunade hostage, then remembered who she was, so Song threatened Naruto directly. Song sent one of his security staff to bully Naruto. That did not go over too well. A man that would be equal to Sakchai and Hayato in height, but make 2 of them in bulk waded through the crowd to stand right behind the boy. Naruto did not even turn around, he just sent his elbow back into the man's sternum. And the next thing that happened was a human-sized hole through the wall. Song just looked on in agape as a boy demolished his head of security without even looking at him. It had been just a light tap of the same monstrous strength Tsunade was famous for. I told you, he is my apprentice, Song-san, Tsunade stated absently. What did you think that meant, baking cookies? Finally, Song gave up and asked in a shrill voice, "What'll it take to get him to stop destroying my business?" "You'll have to ask him, Song-san. Normally he would have stopped at just getting double the amount I owe you, and ask you to forgive my debts," Tsunade answered. But something has lit a fire in his eyes. He seems outraged over something. Then looking at the old man sharply, "You wouldn't happen to know what that could be, do you? Because it started when your dealer on that first table switched the dice?" Song gulped and broke out into a sweat. As Tsunade's Kekkei swept over him gently, he frantically shook his head, resigning to face the loss of his business, over his life. At long last, Song walked over and asked with his head bowed for Naruto to stop. "What will it take for you to cease, young man?" Naruto looked at him. His happy face grew serious. "Normally I'd say to forgive Tsunade-chan's debts, but then you'd still be here, cheating these people out of their hard-earned money, with weighted dice, and magnetized roulette wheels. When anybody gambles, losing your money is always a risk you take when setting your money down, but you were just taking it from them. And in my book that makes you no better than a thief," Naruto admonished the old man. The crowd had become deathly quiet as they heard how they had been cheated. There were shouts of outrage. But Naruto was not finished. "I cannot leave here, with you still the owner of this place, because you will just go back to swindling your patrons. So, I will give you all of my winnings tonight." There were shocked expressions, and gasps of surprise. "If you sign over ownership of this place to me, that's 10 million real for you, sir, if you leave here, and never set foot in this place again." Song was startled and looked into the eyes of the man, only 12 years old, rebuking him like he was the child. He saw the resolve in Naruto's eyes, and bowed his head in defeated resignation. Song signed over the title to the land and the buildings that sat upon them, to Naruto Uzumaki and Ryo Zanpaku, Inc. As owner, Naruto not only forgave Tsunade her debts, but did so to everybody he found in the ledger with read by their names. He could not know which of them lost for real and which were cheated, so he issued a blanket forfeiture across the board. Of course, he allowed everybody to keep what they won, but he closed the casino, until he could hold a meeting with his business partners, about what to do with it. The rest of the trip was uneventful, compared to that little episode, and was in the end, quite successful. They had succeeded in clearing out the rest of Tsunade's debts and had completed that part of the mission, a whole 2 weeks earlier than planned. They were walking down the street of the village of Two Rivers. It felt like the end of an era for Naruto. This was the closest place he had ever come to having a home in 6 years. Tsunade was looking at him out of the corner of her eye. She knew that look. It was the expression of someone not knowing what they wanted to do, now that they had a whole world at their disposal. She also knew what question he wanted to ask, as he opened his mouth. "So now that you're debt-free, what are you going to do now?" "Going back to gambling," he assumed. "Now that our contract is about to be concluded, you'll be free and clear to go back to that?" Tsunade sighed, and shook her head. "No, I won't be doing any gambling, at least not with such small stakes as money. I'll be gambling with lives now," she told him, and at his confused look, "I was deeply disturbed by what Aoi Rokusho told you has become of my grandfather's dream. He said that Konoha was being more or less run by the council, and Sensei is being an ineffectual leader as the Hokage. That just will not do," she said, with passion in her eyes, "so I'm going back into the Leaf and take over the office of Hokage. While there, I am going to drag it back to the path my grandfather envisioned. When he and Madara team founded the village," she declared with a closed fist, "the very idea that a boy of 4 should have to contend with and endure such hardships tells me that if something isn't done before it's too late, then the Konoha I remember will perish, and I intend to do everything in my power, using every resource at my disposal as Hokage and a Senju, to see that doesn't happen." Naruto was looking at her in astonishment, before remembering his discipline and turning away from her. "I hope you do it, Tsunade-chan," he said to her. "I hope you make it a place worth living and dying for. I will never love it like you do, but if you can make it a place like that, then I might be able to return to it. I hear there are some true masters of metalwork there. I would love to be able to learn from some of them." Tsunade laid her hand on his shoulder, thinking about, "I am Ichiraku-san?" He just nodded, but said nothing. He had begun to wonder if he still loved her that way anymore. He had changed so much. Would she even want him anymore? He knows he loves her, but he wonders if it's the same type as before? Tsunade rubbed his shoulders, looking thoughtful, as a strange feeling seemed to wash over her all of a sudden. It took her breath away, because she was no stranger to this feeling, but the last time she felt it, the last person she felt it for. "Dan," she whispered so low that even Naruto failed to hear her. They turned the corner and went through the genjutsu to get to Ryo Zanpaku. They entered to find all students working on their craft of being ninja, and the instructors teaching them their crafts. Before they could knock on the door, it opened and behind it was Mio, and she was several months pregnant. She appeared to have been expecting them, not that she contained her enthusiasm. "Tsunade Toko, Naruto Ototo," she exclaimed, before pulling them both into a hug. That was all the more awkward with her bulk. "Welcome home." Naruto and Tsunade both grinned, and hugged her back, though significantly more gentle than Mio's bone-crushing hug. "Thanks, Mio," they replied in unison, and again with, "May I?" they asked. Together, Naruto and Tsunade, after receiving a nod of permission from Mio, allowed their green medical chakra to envelop their hands, and together assessed the health of the fetus, and the mother-to-be, while Naruto engaged his magnetic vision, magviz, and metal sense, to add to anything his sensei might need. Wow, you're coming along nicely, Mio-chan, Tsunade judged. Not only are you as healthy as a bull, despite being 6 months pregnant, but your baby's progressing very well, too. Did you want to know the gender, she asked, when Naruto added his analysis? Genders, Naruto corrected. They looked at him in surprise, but he just nodded at his own analysis. There are 2 magnetic signatures within you, Mioing, and I'm sensing 2 different blood signatures besides your own. He stopped his probes and extinguished his chakra. As he looked up and smiled at Mio's expression, it was a mixture of elation and consternation. But from behind her came another voice. Don't worry about it, Amado-tsuma, you know our husband will be there for us, and we'll be there for each other, came a brunette's voice. Another of Naruto's sisters, the one he arrived at Ryozanpaku with, Kanamiane. Naruto was astonished, because she was swollen with child as well? Well, it seems you two have been enjoying your husband immensely, since I've been gone, he snickered, and they both blushed. Tsunade quirked an eyebrow. Husband, as in one man? Yep, Naruto just confirmed, with a big grin. You see, Tsunade-chan, I arrived here with Kaname here, when she and her cohorts, calling themselves the 3 Pillars, tried to rob Susumu-sensei. Really? The elder blonde asked. Naruto just waved her off. They entered the house and were taking off their shoes. It's a story for another time. Anyway, Mio and Kaname became closer than sisters, but later, ended up falling for the same man. He grinned admirably. But instead of letting such a trivial thing as a man divide them, they decided to share him, and now the lucky SOB has 2 beautiful wives. Naruto looked into the distance. He must be in paradise. The 3 women in the room shared a look of derision, and together said, Men. Tsunade reached over and flicked his ear, causing him to squeal and clutch the offended body part. That would never work for me, she said as she walked on by. As casual as you please, I've never been very good at sharing my toys with others. Huh, Naruto wondered, but the other ladies shared a look and giggled. It seems they were witnessing the start of a very interesting campaign. They showed Naruto into Hayato's office. Tsunade was already there, before leaving to go do other things. But not before he called out, Kanamiane-chan, if you stick close, Tsunade-chan, and I will give you and your baby a checkup when we're done. The brunette bowed but remained silent as she left. Her reverence for Naruto knew no bounds. In her mind, meeting him was the single greatest event that ever happened to her. It led her here to her husband and sister-wife, and the prospect of motherhood. If Naruto had not been taken when he arrived here, she would have tried to be with him. Once they were alone, the elder grinned his pleasure at seeing him, and his words matched his expression. Welcome back, Shinobi-san, he beamed. He pushed Naruto an envelope, which he opened. Inside were his credentials as a ninja, including his shinobi license with picture, and the glyph mark that proclaimed him a medical ninja, allowing him to work in any hospital, hospice, medical ward, and so on the continent. He just grinned and vanished them to the safe place all ninja keep their licenses and credentials, then bowed solemnly to the man who was his father in every way but blood. The bow conveyed his respect for Hayato, his gratitude, but most of all concealed his tears. Some ninja, I'm on the verge of bawling, because I finally attained my true freedom from my past. There was a clank on the desk and he raised his head to find Hayato laying the Raijin no Ken on the desk in front of Naruto. He looked astonished. Isn't that from Mio-chan? Hayato shook his head. She didn't want it, and said it should go to the heir of Tobarama Senju that recovered it. What? Naruto asked in puzzlement. Hayato sighed. Sit down, Naruto-kun. It's time you learn the whole truth about your family, specifically, your father's family. Naruto thought his quota for surprise had been reached today. He was proven wrong by the next thing Namikaze Hayato told him. You are the son of the Yondaime Hokage, Minato Namikaze. It was dark in the land of fire. Tonight was a new moon, and the night was made even darker by the curtain of tree trunks and branches that were blocking even the tiny illumination provided by the stars. Darkness by itself is no danger. On most nights there would be sounds, the chirp of crickets, the hoot of an owl, even the sound of an occasional snap of a twig. Tonight, however, the natural inhabitants of the forest were utterly silent, and still, there seemed to be an ever-present air of menace, covering these woods with the stink of danger. The denizens of this forest knew that death was on the hunt, and he was after specific prey. None of them wanted to make the hunter change his mind about adding them to his menu. The hunter's prey had silver hair, but not from old age, merely a quirk of his family genetics. His attire consisted of a navy blue, long-sleeved shirt, under a standard issue, gray flak jacket, with shinobi trousers and ninja sandals. Normally, on his forehead, a hetai would be there with a stylized leaf insignia in the center, but as of 12 hours ago, and one dead Chunin, his former best friend, later, he was no longer affiliated with the ninja of Konoha. For the last 6 months, things in the village had gone downhill fast. Ever since that woman had returned to the village, things had begun to change, and not for the better in his opinion. He had just been about to leave the ninja corps and gain a cushy seat on the village's ruling council, when that woman abolished the civilian body of counselors. She demoted the counselors to simple bureaucrats. They now managed the minutiae of details that came with running a village, mostly sanitation and building restoration, as well as an overhaul of the village's orphanages. She seemed determined to make sure all of the village's orphanages were looked after, and those found lacking were sent packing. One orphanage she seemed to go out of her way to make an example of. The smallest infractions from that single orphanage, which would be overlooked in the others, was added to the list and within a month was closed down, and the orphanage personnel was flogged to within an inch of their lives. Afterward, she was named Hokage by the Sandaime, and then she really began making changes. From instating a curfew on all civilians, with only restaurants and food stores allowed to remain open after 9 at night, so ninja could get something to eat between missions. Prices were fixed for food stores or had a cap that they could not go above, and the cap was based on comparable goods sold in villages of comparable size to Konoha. Now everybody paid the same price, whether the shop owner liked them or not. The one change this man applauded was the law that stated no ninja could be excluded from any store or business without just cause, and it had to be proven to the ANBU squad leader, or the owner could find themselves slapped with a hefty fine and closure of the business for 1 week. A second infraction led to a flogging, another heavier fine, and closure for not more than 1 month. A third led to permanent closure of the business, and revocation of the right to work in Konoha. They were not banished, but without the ability to work in Konoha, the person would be required to leave to earn money. The aim of these 2 revisions was quite clear to the more astute citizens. Konoha was a ninja village, it was for ninja, governed by ninja, and it was not ruled by democracy but by the Hokage, of which, only the daimyo could overrule the Hokage, but only under very strict guidelines. Many tried to protest to the daimyo formally, but were sent very clear orders by the daimyo to pack up and leave Konoha. If they did not like the way the Hokage ran her village, they did not have to stay there. It was not just the civilian population that felt the pinch of change when Tsunade Senju returned to the village. She instituted more discipline among her ninja forces that the previous Hokage had allowed to lapse. To the old-timers of the village, it was nothing new. These were the same strictures of behavior that had been known under the regimes of the first and second Hokage, and the first term of the third. Even the fourth held these standards of behavior sacred, and he was, in his short term in office, considered one of the more laid-back Hokages of those that came before him. This relaxing discipline had been allowed under the auspices of the Sandaime's second term in office, because when he took back the hat, he had been enjoying his retirement, and his mind had been hard-pressed to return to action as the Hokage. There is a phrase used in the military about how bad news tends to flow, and that phrase is shit rolls downhill, and the changes Tsunade made at first began with the elders of the village, then everything went downhill from there. She started by curtailing their power immensely, by removing their power to call council meetings without her permission. Oh, they tested her sure enough. When they called a meeting of the clan council to have her ousted from the chair, they believed they had the grounds to do so, but when the 3 elders showed up to begin the meeting, all they found was Tsunade, waiting for them. The clan council, it seemed, liked the way Tsunade was running things and had sent her warning about the elders' machinations, to have her removed from office. Waiting with Tsunade was the entire core of ANBU, waiting with the remnants of the Uchiha clan. The rumors of its demise had been greatly exaggerated. It had actually only been all of the males of the clan, genin and above, who were slaughtered, plus the clan leader and the elders of the clan. Shursui Uchiha had also disappeared the night of the massacre. His body was not found among the dead. The contingent of ninja waiting with the Sannin, and the Senju herself, looked like they had just been in a battle. They were disheveled, but the relaxed look in their eyes, not to mention the fact they were here and not dead, told everybody who won. Tsunade was sitting in her council seat, one leg propped up over the arm of her chair, conversing with her student from her time as a Jonin sensei, Mikoto Uchiha. From their giggles, it was mostly lady business. Nothing substantive was taking place in their discourse, until Tsunade spotted the elders at the door, with astonished, bewildered expressions on their faces. A small flick sent Mikoto away to converse with her clan's people. Tsunade stood and a bright, energetic smile crossed her visage. "Esteemed elders, welcome. We're just wrapping up here," she told them disarmingly while she approached them, it seems while surveying the ruins of the part of Konoha that was most affected by the Kyubi no Kitsun's assault 13 years ago. My ANBU found an interesting series of tunnels running beneath that section of the village. It was unusual to say the least, and a serious security issue to leave unexplored. If one wanted to, they could conceal a sizable contingent of personnel within Konoha, and we wouldn't have known anything about them until it was all over. She explained to them like they were children. That's entirely possible, Tsunade. Shiramura addressed the Hokage with familiarity. The way he used to do with the third, they should be thoroughly scouted. Tsunade nodded. They already have been, and wouldn't you know it, our worst fears were realized. It seems a quite large force of ninja had managed to infiltrate our village and had taken refuge in those tunnels. She seemed to remember something. "Oh, Shiramura-san, if you ever address me so familiarly like that again," she began sweetly, before her voice hardened with implacability, "I'll have you brought up on charges of sedition and insubordination, which is punishable by public flogging, and your chakra sealed permanently. My sensei may have allowed you some leeway in how you 3 addressed him, but that was only because you were friends and rivals in the academy. And you too," she said, indicating Hamura and Koharu, were his teammates under Tobaramaji-san. "That relationship doesn't extend to me," she stated clearly. "You will all address me as Senju-sama, Hokage-sama, or even Lady Hokage in common talk. I would hate to have either of you whipped in front of your grandchildren." "Understood? Hi, Hokage-sama," they chorused, now realizing this was truly a return to the military discipline of their youth. All but one of them were excited about this direction. "As I was saying, Hokage-sama," Danzo began again, lending derisive inflection to the title, Tsunade decided to let that go for now. He would get what was coming to him soon enough. The tunnels should be scouted and surveyed and the people interrogated, to see how far they have penetrated into Konoha. And, as I said, Shiramura-san, she said, lending the same inflection for him as he did for her. Before, faster than a lightning strike, she leveled a right cross on the cheek, sending him flying against the wall. She had used a tiny bit of her monstrous strength. If she had used all of it, they would not have found enough left of him to fill a shoe box for his burial. We have already scouted the tunnels, and it's a little too late to interrogate them since most of them are already dead, and the others have been injured so thoroughly that they will no longer be able to speak coherently. The only one left intact, so to speak, was a young boy, who has a remarkable talent for drawing. He is being held in the pediatric unit of the hospital, with his chakra sealed to prevent him from escaping. She pulled something from her pouch and tossed it to the floor. It was a mask, similar to the ones worn by her ANBU corps. The difference was in the details. This one was a pure white, full-faced mask, with the symbol for NEH on the forehead, and it was blood-stained. She tossed it to the ground like an unholy thing. They were all wearing this. Tsunade shivered theatrically, the symbol for emptiness, a blank slate, without moral compunction for anything. Whatever they were, they sure weren't ninja. At least not the kind of ninja I'd want to deploy. I need people with the moral compass to know when to say no to a mission, or willing to go against the mission parameters if there is a greater moral imperative at stake. Danzo was looking at the mask on the floor with wide, astonished eyes, then up into the eyes of his Hokage. They were the eyes of somebody daring him to make a move. They told him that she knew all about his duplicity and subversion, but for some reason she was not accusing him of anything. She had him dead to rights, and she was not going in for the kill. It was not feminine gentility. Her eyes and demeanor were as hard as a diamond, and glittered like one, with pure malice behind it. Danzo turned his head down, in submission. Whatever her gain was, she was saving him for something, maybe someone else. Tsunade, satisfied that she had the old fart at her mercy, turned her head and gazed at all three of them. By the way, I know why you all are here in my council chambers. You see, unlike you three, the clan council likes the way I'm running the village. They feel that the discipline I've been reinstituting is actually good for the village. They think the caliber of ninja we've turned out for the past 13 years has waned, and with the possible exception of Itachi Uchiha, none of them are approaching legendary status, like they did under previous regimes. That means you three are guilty of treason and insubordination, she accused them with an acidic voice. This is my village, these are my ninja, and this is my council. You are my elders, you serve at the pleasure of the Hokage, and at her bidding. Well, you were elders, now you're all retired. ANBU, she ordered, and before her mouth was even closed, several ninja in animal masks appeared next to their Hokage. Take these three away. Have temporary chakra seals placed on each and every one of their tenketsu, as well as the self-destruction subroutine. They were elders after all. The secrets they could reveal to enemy ninja could destroy Konoha overnight. This meant that they were now trapped here within the village. This level of security meant they were able to walk around the village as much as they wanted but were unable to go more than a mile from the village walls, or the seals placed over their tenketsu would activate, which would immediately and forcibly expel all of the chakra within the chakra coils, which would lead to death via chakra exhaustion. They were also restricted from entering ninja buildings. They were now persona non grata to the ninja of Konoha. If they tried to enter places with restricted access, only to ninja, the same subroutine that killed them if they left, rendered them unconscious for sticking their nose where it did not belong. At their age, the elders could still die of a heart attack or stroke if that happened. Hi, Hokage-sama, the ANBU bellowed. Mizuki came back from his musings. He had learned all of that from his best friend, Irika Yumino, a week or two after it had gone down. The Hokage encouraged everyone in the room to tell of what they saw that night. She wanted everyone to know the level of her resolve for returning Konoha back to its former glory. Irika had been recalled to active duty, after Tsunade had to decommission several ANBU commanders. Tsunade had ordered them to undergo psychological screening to make sure they were still viable ANBU. The details were sketchy, but the Yamanaka clan was employed heavily. From what they had heard, they were all given the same scenario. They had to watch a child being beaten up by several adults. It was always the same child, though who the kid was need to know only. The ones who stepped in to aid the child without being ordered were retained. Those that had to be ordered, or refused to help even when ordered, were decommissioned, and or executed for dereliction of duty. They were ANBU. To leave them alive would open up a potential enemy that Konoha could not allow. Such was the fate of all who entered the ANBU ranks. Those that served with distinction and honor could be let go almost without worry. Those who defiled their position or otherwise served their village poorly did not live long enough to become a threat to the village. After the elders were, for lack of a better term, sacked, Tsunade turned to the clans. While for the most part the Hokage could not interfere with the clans, the daimyo could, and in Konoha his shadow of fire served in his name, so it was within this office she acted. It was during one of the clan council meetings, toward the end, when it all went down. They had made good progress in the meeting that day, without the elders chiming in to add their two choreo over everything which was discussed. That made things run more smoothly, even if Tsunade was looking to have them replaced.